Hello, welcome to the stream. It's your boy Lowglee. Just playing some WoW in oh shit. I'm in combat. I'm just playing WoW and
You
watching
ever feel like you might
YouTube.
be late to finding love? Maybe someone your age just got married or just fell in love. Or maybe they just went through 4 divorces at 20 years old. This is Abby, a Chinese influencer whose entire life revolved around constantly changing her face so that she could marry a new guy every year. She's someone who realized that every failed plastic surgery she got would make her viral. So she took advantage of that and kept undergoing procedures hoping that it would fail. She goes by the saying, every new relationship always needs a new face. She's talking about herself. I've got an insane story for you guys today because Abby is no ordinary girl. She's probably in the top 3 most famous influencers of Douyin who reach celebrity level and is also known as China's most rebellious teenager. This girl not only went through 4 divorces with rich influencers at 20 years old, but she's also the pioneer of the infamous bubble face image that terrified netizens across China. She's known for looking like a completely different person every couple of months by getting face transplants. Pretty much, if you marry her, you're destined to have your life ruined. Marriage is just a free trial to her, and this entire obsession with marriage and plastic surgery all started when she was just a kid. Abby was born in Nanjing, China in 1999, and for the first 10 years of her life, everything was relatively normal, just a pretty average childhood. That's until her parents got divorced. Now, the divorce wasn't the main issue. It was what happened afterwards. Her mother eventually remarried and wanted to start a new chapter of her life. Unfortunately, this chapter involved a stepfather who was an alcoholic. Abby said that her mother and stepfather just abandoned her at a house in Nanjing for a couple months, only like leaving her with her dog. And school wasn't much better either. She got involved with the wrong crowd, started drinking, partying, and even eventually just dropped out of school in secret. She basically rebelled against everything, and it's not surprising considering how uninvolved her parents are in her life. So at just 14 years old, she secretly took the pocket money she earned and got her first plastic surgery without telling her parents. And her parents immediately found out when they looked at her nose and realized that something was different. They were devastated, and the first thing they decided to do was sign her up for a reality show. Yeah, that's probably the last thing you thought I'd say. And this wasn't any ordinary reality show. This show is called Transformation, and it is huge in China. The whole idea was taking rebellious city kids and then sending them to extremely poor rural areas so that they could experience hardship and hopefully learn to appreciate what they had. And Abby ended up getting sent to a mountain village, and of course, life there was nothing like she'd ever seen before. In this family, the adults were either working all day or in prison, and the eldest son had to raise his younger siblings all by himself. And then something happened that genuinely affected her. She met a girl wearing tattered clothes who hadn't eaten, so Abby took it upon herself to cook noodles for her. The kid took it, and instead of immediately eating it herself, the first thing she did was share the noodles with her younger siblings so everybody could have something to eat. And that scene alone made Abby break down in tears. Because probably for the first time in her life, realizing that no matter how difficult her circumstances were, it was not as bad as this. She realized that there were people struggling even more than her, and despite that, they still cared for one another. I mean, it's clear that she needed to see this in person with her own eyes to understand this. She could have just watched a top 5 saddest commercial video, but that just doesn't hit the same. When she returned home, she hugged her stepfather, and he promised that he would support her. She promised that she wouldn't get any more plastic surgery, like she's done. And for a moment, it really looked like she was turning her life around. And she was, in a completely different way. Also, while I was back in Asia, it took me almost a year to find a doctor. I just kept telling myself that I'd figure it out eventually, and I actually got a really bad ache in my eye. I was just searching up random clinics hoping that something would work out, and I was lost. This is where today's sponsor, ZocDoc, comes in. ZocDoc is a free website that helps you find and book quality doctors near you. This is only available in the US, but you just go on, search for doctors in your area that take your insurance, read through real patient reviews, see their actual availability, and then you just book it. You can even book a casual video appointment at home. You can also search by specialty or even just by symptoms. Appointments usually happen within 24 to 72 hours, and sometimes you can even score same-day appointments.
Hey,
They've got over 150,000 providers across 200 plus specialties in all 50 states. I chose an I will take better care of our health. The biggest lesson she took away from transformation wasn't gratitude. It wasn't being a better person. No, She realized
Damn, that guy
she
just got
liked the
like
fame.
a
And
full
for the
ad
first
read
time in
off
her
on my
life,
channel for
millions of
free.
people were paying attention to her story. And more importantly, attention can become money. And money can get her plastic surgery, which ultimately gets her more attention. Because from that point onward, Abby pretty much just discovered the formula that would define her entire life. After her fame from transformation, she started building her own online business and began selling products through live streams. She wasn't a huge influencer yet, but she was learning the game. She knew people didn't just buy products. They buy stories and they buy drama. Like, nobody is sitting there watching someone sell tea for 3 hours. This is also where her plastic surgery obsession went completely off the rails, because she realized that if she kept getting plastic surgery, she could attract male celebrities and look different every time things didn't work out. A famous quote she said is, "Starting from today, I'll keep getting plastic surgery until I'm old." And she wasn't joking, this girl went on an absolute surgery spree. The first major thing she did was try lifting her face with fillers. Except, things went horribly wrong because it turned out the fillers were counterfeit and they contained growth factors. And if you guys remember the growth factors I talked about before, this failure was the origin that created the bubble face photo that terrified people across all of China. And here's the crazy part, she leaned into it because she realized people couldn't stop talking about it. Every failed procedure became viral and every new surgery raised questions. Okay, wait a second. My surgeries, failed or successful, are paying my bills. The Douyin algorithm was basically rewarding her for ruining her own face. And once she realized that, there was no stopping, because she later underwent 6 nose surgeries by using her ear cartilage and the bone from her ribs to implant into her nose. And because of this, too much
Jeez.
tissue in her nostrils had been cut away, and her nostrils became so small to where she can't even breathe properly. She literally has to use her fingers to open her nose every time she wanted to take a deep breath. And these unnatural features slowly start to become a part of her identity. She even said, "I did this for you guys. You said my nose was too upturned, so I changed it." And after all of these procedures, this eventually led us to her first marriage. She met this influencer named Mr. Pig. Now, his real name is Saucywithatwist, but almost everyone knows him by his nickname Mr. Pig, so we'll call him that, and you'll understand why in a bit. Abby was 18 years old at the time, and she quickly fell in love. And before long, she became pregnant. And instead of keeping the pregnancy private, she live streamed it. I'm serious. When she was giving birth, she decided, why not take advantage of this and start selling some products? Imagine entering the world and the first thing waiting for you is chat. The daughter was nicknamed Little Pig by Abby. And they didn't just live stream the birth. Her wedding was even crazier because the entire wedding ceremony itself became a giant live stream sales event. They sold products and gained more than 3.2 million followers, then even reportedly earned around 1.8 million yuan during the wedding stream. They understood netizens and they gave the people a show. Unfortunately, relationships built on hype and attention usually don't have happy endings. Because only about a week after their wedding, Abby accused Mr. Pig of cheating. She started a live stream crying and claimed that he was having an affair with another influencer. She also accused him of assaulting her during the wedding behind the scenes. She said on that wedding day, Mr. Pig demanded 400,000 yuan from her, and when she refused, he slapped her 22 times. Of course, Mr. Pig fired back. He accused her of being the unfaithful one. No, you are the one doing it. He pulled the good old Uno reverse card. Both sides were making allegations, no you did this, no you did this, like pointing fingers, and eventually they got a divorce. The end. No, because 4 months later, they remarried. Abby is still 18 years old, by the way, and she's been married 2 times now and has a child. She's already collecting marriage certificates like Pokemon cards. And here's the thing, getting remarried after a divorce is pretty uncommon in China because statistically, second marriages have lower success rates. And they proved that statistic because 1 year later, they divorced again. And it was even uglier than the first time because she claimed that her daughter, Little Pig, was diagnosed with heart disease. Mr. Pig agreed to take her daughter to the hospital only after his live stream was over. Which is just insane. Like, how far have we gone? Then one thing led to another, and then accusations just kept escalating. Abby said Mr. Pig was a womanizer. She accused him of living off her money while using it to secretly buy another woman gifts. And Mr. Pig? No, you did that. You see why netizens call him Mr. Pig now? At this point, these two had more allegations than anniversaries, and every single accusation became a trending topic, which gained Abby a lot of attention. Because as messy as it sounds, your brain goes, okay, this is terrible, but what happens next? Eventually, Abby obtained custody of their daughter, Little Pig. And keep in mind, she received 50% of Mr. Pig's assets from this divorce. Court documents also showed that Mr. Pig had to pay 10,000 yuan per month in child support. Now, after this entire scandal exploded, Abby became even more well known in the influencer world. She started skyrocketing on Douyin, Weibo, like every platform on Chinese social media. Her business exploded and she started earning around 50 to 60 million yuan every year from her online branding. She became wealthy enough to buy herself multiple luxury cars, Rolls Royces, Bentleys, everything. At 18 years old. There were even claims that she obtained hundreds of millions of yuan from Mr. Pig after the divorce. And around this period, she also became friends with Han Yi. Yes, our shoulder pad master himself. If you guys remember a video from a couple months ago, it all circles back. Now, after her divorce, Abby started thinking about her face again. She didn't want her current appearance to affect her future relationships. She considered it bad luck and wanted a fresh start. And you know what fresh start means? A new face. And this time, she got the infamous smiling lip surgery. 7 times. She underwent procedures to create M-shaped lips to permanently make it look like she was smiling. Then she injected fillers to achieve a constantly pouty face. As for her eyes, she wanted them bigger, so she underwent lower eyelid retraction and fox eye surgery. She pretty much got every eye procedure in the book, and she literally said that she wanted to show the white part of her eye as much as possible. And already looking at her face in this photo at the dentist, netizens pointed out how her skin was already peeling like painted skin. And it's pretty obvious. And now she has been reborn again, a new Abby with a new face, which of course comes with a new man. This leads us to her next target. His name was Ma Zixin. Exactly 1 year after divorcing Mr. Pig, Abby met Ma at a nightclub. And again, he's a pretty big influencer. This one might be the weirdest relationship so far because these two met, fell in love, and decided to get married in the span of 10 days. I mean, it's just love at first sight. What else could it be? 10 days? We don't even get past the talking stage in 10 days. But if you do want to get past that, you gotta smell good with cheeky soap. They even got Chainsaw Man and Solo Leveling soap. Check out the link in the description to support your boy. And before netizens could even finish congratulating this newlywed, multiple women that were fans of Ma suddenly came out and said they had receipts. Screenshots of Ma flirting with them, asking them to video chat, trying to meet up with them. Then some people accused him of allegedly working as a male escort in Nanjing. They also accused him of being a sea king, as in there are plenty of fish in the sea, and the sea king knows all the fish. I mean, it hadn't even been more than 2 weeks since their marriage and this guy's already getting cancelled. So naturally, everybody waited to see what Abby would say. And she actually defended him. She insisted that there were no overlap in timelines and he was completely loyal, basically saying that none of this happened while they were together. Meanwhile, Ma was trying his absolute hardest to prove that he loved her. Prove to his fans, of course. He tattooed a giant Abby on his arm and also sent her 999 roses. Okay, maybe this one works out. No, because a week later, they got a divorce. And that tattoo was a temporary tattoo. Turns out those messages were actually real, and Abby accused him of trying to hook up with his fans, then also saying that he tried to extort 2 million yuan from her, and Ma started making his own accusations, calling Abby a drug user, which Abby denied. And just like that, another marriage over. This one was pretty short-lived though. But remember, this was another viral topic that had been born, which made headlines, and who benefited from all of this? Abby. The divorce became one of the biggest talking points of that year, and once again, Abby gained around 50% of his assets from the divorce. I'm starting to see a pattern here. Maybe, just maybe, she's doing all of this on purpose by using romance for fun and then milking the guys once she's bored. Never mind, what am I saying? By now, she had been officially married 3 times and divorced 3 times. And you already know what comes next. Another divorce means another face. And this time, she went absolutely all out. We're talking 8 nose jobs, jaw reduction, more fillers, elf ears, bone shaving, and so much that I can't even name them all. She also posted photos of herself undergoing body liposuction, which is an extremely serious procedure. She wanted to completely change her figure by removing all the fat in her thighs, arms, belly. Essentially, she wanted to achieve her ideal appearance without exercising and losing
Damn.
weight. And when people saw these photos, a lot of netizens were genuinely horrified. People were like, she's rich, but also willing to risk her life? This is terrifying. One day she might actually die on the operating table. And at this point, Abby had already undergone 35 procedures and spent over 800
Yo, what up, Chris? Why didn't you say anything?
Almost the price of a small
He's watching
house.
you lose.
And after getting all these surgeries and recovering, guess what happened?
Were you?
Another
Oh, I
relationship.
tried.
In 2025,
Well,
1 year after
I
divorcing
don't know. I was
Marx's
doing
scene,
good, but
Abby
no
fell
one
in
else
love
was
again. This time with the
no one else was
influencer Song Haoren.
holding
And this
stuff. I
time,
don't know.
it gets
It's
interesting.
my first time
Because
doing this
Song was 5
mission.
years younger than her. Song was 19
Was
and
this
Abby
an
was
orc?
just turning 24. And I know 5 years isn't some insane age gap, but the problem was that he was still
Don't
under
read
the
all your
legal
people.
marriage age at the time. Meaning
I
they couldn't
messaged
officially register their
Preston.
marriage
He's
yet.
not
But Abby,
not
don't
saying
pick no
anything.
for an answer. We can't legally
I mean,
register
measure
yet? That's okay.
This looked like a pretty
Let's
big
just do the wedding
mission
banquet
that you have
anyways.
people
So she
helping.
held the banquet anyways, which
Oh
forced
no,
Song
this
to give
this
her
looks
a
like
bride
a
price of 88,000
regroup for
yuan
next
for the
defenses.
marriage. You see what's going on here?
Sure.
Now this time, the relationship
Where
did
I'm
feel much
regrouping.
different. Song quickly leveraged this newfound
Next
fame and
assault
launched his
in
own
60
live stream
minutes.
business. But he would only post these sweet
It's
moments with
in
Abby
a
where he
while.
was cooking for her when she was sick,
Okay.
taking care of her, being all lovey-dovey online. And for once, it actually seemed like this younger guy was in love with Abby for who she was, regardless
Not
of
sure
her
what
past.
this is.
The whole thing
Are you
definitely
watching
looked
this
way
thing
more
about
genuine than her
Abby
other
and how she
relationships. Netizens were even like,
changes
they're
her
perfect
face?
together. This is real
I don't know
love.
who Abby
She
is, but yeah,
finally
bye.
found the right person. And then Song turned 20 years old and could officially register the marriage and formalize everything. They later had a daughter named Yumi, so Abby now has 2 daughters.
I assume
Little
everyone
Pig and Yumi.
online is
Now imagine raising 2
wearing a
kids while
filter.
being one of China's biggest drama influencers whose
Yeah,
entire life
that's
plays out online.
Even you.
It gets pretty messy. Song was
Am
trying
I?
to make this
Am
work
I?
out
Does
as
my
much
face
as
look different?
possible. He was taking
Yeah,
care
your
of
eyes are like
and Yumi.
twice as
They
big
even had
and
these fun
your
little
cheeks are
moments where
blushing.
Lil Pig was calling him brother instead of dad.
I
Because
don't
I
think
mean,
so. I
he
think you're
is 20
crazy.
years old. And of course, as time passed, people immediately became
I do have a
suspicious.
voice
'Cause, I
filter
mean, every time
thing.
Abby enters a
Yeah, I know.
relationship,
You've done
there's
it with
always a catch.
us
A lot
before.
of netizens thought that Song was only
It's
with Abby
creepy.
because she was rich and famous. But Abby always told people on stream that her family dynamic was
It's
healthy.
a creepy
She said Song
thing. I'm
wasn't after
sorry
her
for
money,
doing
and
it.
even if he was,
I was
she said
just
she
being
had plenty to give him anyways. Okay, but when you
I
have
would
a mindset
never
like
I would
that,
never
eventually the
misuse my
cracks started
power
appearing.
with
One
a
of the
voice
biggest
changer.
tensions was raising the kids because
I don't
according
know.
to
It sounds
Abby,
kind of
she
obvious
wasn't
to
allowed to
me
hug Yumi at home
because
her
the
own
voice
younger
itself
brother
doesn't
would make
sound
Little Pig
genuine. It sounds
unhappy
too
and
like
jealous.
anime.
And Little Pig also often hit
Oh
Yumi
really?
multiple
Okay.
times during arguments, and Abby
Like
just
even I wouldn't
didn't
even
do
believe
anything.
a regular
So
girl has
Song
that
was
type of voice.
extremely unhappy with this. It seems that there is some favoritism going on.
There's a
right?
possibility
And then
that
another massive issue
that
exploded.
girls could
The
talk
bride
with
price. Abby
anime
found out that
voices.
Song's
Oh, they do.
mother
There's
had
tons of
given
influencers and
Song's
tons of YouTube
brother's
people
wife a
that
bride
talk like
price
that.
of 188,000
But I've never met one in
yuan,
real life, so
plus 3
I'm
gold
immediately
jewelry
skeptical of
pieces.
it.
Meanwhile,
Oh,
Abby
right,
only
right.
received 88,000 yuan from his mother and no gold jewelry, which obviously, to
This
her, is unequal treatment.
crazy.
Why am I being treated like charity? In her eyes, this wasn't even
Dude,
about
you
the
should play
money.
WoW
It
with
was
me.
about the respect. She
So
obviously
much
wasn't
fun.
receiving the same treatment
Yeah,
as
too busy
her
getting
daughter,
laid.
and this started another
Yeah,
huge
right.
argument because Song's mother started beefing with Abby and calling her the
Oh, shit,
plastic
sorry, dude.
surgery ghost who brings bad luck to her husband. Wow. And during this, Song took his mother's side and did not defend Abby at all. A few days passed and everything started to
This
settle
one is
down until Abby started a
What's that?
stream and came forward about something she found on
It just looks like
Song's
League of
phone.
Legends
She said
jungling.
that while she was pregnant with Yumi, she found
Yeah.
messages.
Yeah.
And
That's
these
kind of a good way to
messages was Song being
Describe
affectionate
it.
with another man.
But you can choose
She posted
between,
screenshots
I think
and
there's
the
like 9
internet
classes.
absolutely
Dude, if this guy
exploded
takes my
because
fucking
this was a
ore,
completely different situation. Things were already getting feisty with the favoritism
Dude.
and the beef with Song's mom. And Song, when he found out about this,
totally
he
did.
was
But
furious. He started a stream where he completely lost control.
oh shit,
He went
defeat.
into the kitchen, grabbed a
Stage
knife,
101.
and shouted, "I have to make things
Last
clear
hit gets
today."
the loot.
This was crazy. His aunt also
Yeah,
tried
I thought he
calming him
was
down during this, and then he
Oh,
stealing
this thing here.
the
she did some illegal
mining,
things herself.
or
Doesn't she
I'm
know that?
mining.
Yeah.
Miner. I need ores.
我今天必须要说清楚。来，
直播间冷静啊！
我觉得我说实话实说。来，
你别拿这。
别动！我他妈今天该死，
停一下，停一下，停。
对不对？
Dude, this is
难道我没
crazy.
有把这个钱放在家里吗？全部出去吃喝嫖赌了吗？
没有没有。
不行，不行。这样，他妈也要把所有事情说清楚。
不能这样。
你觉得海忍他到底干嘛了？他自己做了一些违。
For the first time, Song is
I wonder what
finally
they're
revealing his
saying.
true colors. Netizens were looking at this
Who's
man
there?
this entire time as an innocent, caring,
The-
and loving young
the
man.
video
And
I'm
as he was
watching.
still crashing out,
Can you-
his aunt immediately took his phone and
I
ended
thought
the
you were
live
watching my
stream. This
stream.
entire thing pretty much broke
Yeah, we don't have the
Chinese
audio on or
because
your
some
your own echo.
influencers started giving their
Okay.
opinions. Some people pick sides.
They're-
other
they were
influencers
just
avoided
screaming
this
stuff
stream
at each other in
completely because
Chinese.
they didn't want to be involved in
We
the
could play-
drama, and the
We could
viewership numbers
play
generation.
League of
Which once
Legends.
again brings us back to Abby's
Oh, I don't have it
entire
downloaded.
plan since she was
And I
a
really
child.
don't like the way that
The
it
more attention, the more
installs
money.
and hang
just a
around
couple
on your
months ago,
computer
back in
anymore.
January,
It was really
they
invasive.
officially divorced, meaning that by the age of 25, Abby has now been married
It
and
would
Is it
take
really?
forever to.
4 times. At this point, netizens weren't even
Yeah, I mean, you might
surprised
not
anymore.
notice.
People started
But for
calling
me, it was
a
always running in
marriage
the background,
problem.
and
Now, after this divorce
Oh,
with Song,
dude.
Abby
can't install
kept
it. It won't
custody
let you
of the children.
uninstall
She
it.
kept the house, the cars,
Unless you
homes,
do a
and
certain
everything. And Song later even
amount of
said that
things.
he wasn't even planning to fight for custody of
Oh,
their daughter.
shit.
He also admitted that he had
Oops.
benefited from Abby's fame and popularity, but denied accusations that he simply used her and ran away, pointing out that he no longer wanted the house or the cars. And once again, Abby received around 50% of Song's assets through his live stream e-commerce
Listen,
business. And now she's
this
a
YouTube channel
multi-millionaire with one of the biggest
me
followings
peacocking.
across Douyin and all
I'm
of
gonna
Chinese
find
social media. She built
a
her career
YouTuber
brick by brick,
waifu.
scandal by
We're
scandal,
gonna get married and
marriage
play
after
WoW
marriage.
and
She's
have a
probably the
YouTube
number
channel
one most
together.
controversial modern influencers there
Go.
is, and she also has tens of millions
can
of
find her while
fans
playing WoW.
and haters watching her now. If
Yeah.
you're curious, this is what Song is up to
Just
now.
ask in the general chat if anyone
I'm
wants to
doing
be
that right
your
now.
girlfriend. You totally won't get a 40
Anyone?
pound, 40
Anyone
year
25
old
years
guy.
or
He
older
also has millions of netizens
want
asking
to
him every
be
day if he likes men
my
or women. And
girlfriend.
where is Abby today? Well, she has another
25,
boyfriend.
that's like
I know, nobody
7
believes
years
me.
younger than
8
me.
years.
Luckily, they're not married.
Dylan and
Yet.
Lee are like
And
8
yes,
years.
he's
Fine,
even
okay, I'll
younger than
say
Song. She still posts their
27.
relationship online in a very high profile way, and she still raises both of her daughters, Lil Pig and Yumi. Honestly, the saddest part about all of this is probably the kids, because Lil Pig actually reportedly developed ADHD from all of the negative publicity. And Yumi
I
has
said,
already
does
been
anyone
entangled in a
27
bunch
years
of
or older
rumors
want
with
to
her
be my
dad's song,
girlfriend?
which will obviously follow into her teenage years. When it comes to Abby, she was a kid who grew up feeling
No, I don't
abandoned,
want to
and
do
just
that. I don't want
little
to tarnish
bit
my
of online
reputation on World of
attention
Warcraft.
consumed her
I'm a
entire
paladin
life.
of
It made her
light.
feel seen, which led her to searching for money,
Can embarrass
love,
yourself while playing World of
validation,
Warcraft.
and a fresh start through
Exactly.
surgeries and marriage. And she's self-aware that
I'm
she's
not
been
gonna
trapped in this
do that.
endless loop to
I have
keep
a
up in
reputation
future
to
career.
uphold.
But this is her entire life now, and it's what makes her happy. As someone who
Yeah, you're
hasn't
super
been through a
guild.
marriage or a divorce, who am
You're
I
a
to
super
say
guild
what's right and
leader.
what's wrong? Maybe this wasn't about
I'm
the
not even in a
Maybe
guild
it was about
actually
the divorces
on
we
this
made
guy,
along
Thought you
but
the
started
way.
your super
Guys,
guild.
just please don't get married to someone
I would
as
start
a free
one, yeah.
trial.
Thought you already did.
I did, but no one wanted to join me.
Yeah.
I want this girl to be my girlfriend. She could be my yandere wife.
The PlayStation 2 girl?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but if she was that old when PlayStation 2 came out, she's got to be like 50 or 60 now.
Yeah.
But she's Asian, so she might look exactly the same.
True.
Or as a short old.
Or
Japanese.
super short with purple hair. Come on, we could be Draenei bros together. I'll be the paladin and you can be the death knight. I'll attack targets from afar and you'll pull them in close with your death grip ability. Ooh, chest.
Nah. If I can't be a Voidborn, I don't want to be anything.
And you want to be a Voidborn pillager?
Or maybe the Lich King himself.
Well, that's what Death Knights are. They're kind of like the Lich King.
No, I want to be the Lich King. I want to go against 40 different players and just kill them all.
That would be cool if they did a
That
mode
one
like
dragon
that.
expansion.
Isn't it cool? You get to fly around. What do you want to play?
There's
You want to
nothing
play
really.
Uno with 2 people? Or...
Not really.
Monster Hunter? Are you excited about Monster Hunter Ascendance? The big expansion coming out?
Not excited about it. I'll probably play it.
Oh, okay. Why aren't you excited? It looks
Because the
cool.
base game's trash. Trash game.
Yeah. You're entitled to your own opinion, even though you're wrong.
It's like Monster Hunter World, but with training wheels the entire time.
Yeah.
And then they forgot how to actually make difficult monsters, so they just made BS monsters.
It did make it kind of not difficult.
What's his name was fun though. But then it gets old.
Who was fun?
Shiva.
Oh,
Shiva?
Was that the boss in that yeah, what was it, Zoshia? That's a world, isn't it?
No, that's Wilds. It's the final boss of the game
Oh.
so far.
Oh yeah, Zoshia. There was did you not fight the guy that you had to do dragon and fire damage to? He was cool.
Dragon.
Yeah, he did like different phases, and you had to like switch your weapons.
Elatrion?
Is that Elatrion? No. That's a world.
Right?
In Wilds, there was like this giant gunk monster that had like he had like a dragon phase and
What color was it?
and a fire damage phase.
What color was it?
What color was it? It was like black when it was in its dragon
Pretty sure you're talking
phase.
about Zoshia.
No.
It switches between white and black.
No, hang on. It was like Gog Mausoleus, I think is what its name was.
Dogmazios.
Yeah, no, let me see. Maybe that's what it was. Yeah, Gogmazios. Oil well basin.
No, I didn't find it.
Okay, so his phase 1, you have to do fire damage to bring him out of his oil armor, and then phase 2, you use dragon element for DPS checks. It was cool. It was a cool game.
Yeah.
Cool boss. What? 2 rare creatures. This is gonna start here soon. Defense position activated. It's gonna start here soon. We'll get a try again. But when I joined, it had already taken a lot of damage. Okay, so it's in 1 minute. Move. This guy's cool,
Nice.
man. A dope armor. Fluid defenses. Set. Here. Does this last forever? I don't know, how long does this last? It should last forever. On this side. If I remember correctly, they were mainly coming from this direction. Damn, is this guy gonna put any defenses down? I don't know if I have enough cores for this. I do. I know. looks like more people are here this time. They're all horde. Are they a part of a guild? Come on, guys. Help me focus these guys. These guys are the bad guys, dude.
There's a Monster Hunter secret lair coming up.
Oh, what? Really?
Yeah.
I mean, we get some cool dragon cards.
Valkana's in it. Nargacuga's in it. Brachydios.
Oh
Gormagala.
shit.
Zenogre. Nergigante. Fatalis.
They're all gonna be green.
Rathalos. A lot of them are red. Black and green. Actually, a lot of them are red, black, and green. Lagiacrus.
That's kind of crazy.
Who's blue? And then a bunch of actual monsters.
Need more Stormarian. Okay, this thing's at higher health this time. guy is rare. Get this. We got it. Killed one. Shit, shit, shit. Damn it, dude. They're breaking through. Okay, we got it. Nice. Cool. Yeah. Okay. Yo, we got a whole 2 viewers in the stream right now.
Mine's only showing 1.
Oh. No, it says 1. You scared them away, Chris.
There's too much delay. I haven't said that yet.
Well, I got this. Oh shit. I think I got it. Collected warmonger spawns. Oh, dude, these are dope. Wait, these aren't. Oh. Time to go and transmog again. I need 6 more item levels and then I can raid. You ever play the game Mirror's Edge?
No.
I really like that game.
Yeah, it's alright.
I like the soundtrack for that game.
Right.
Okay. Alright, I really do kind of want to change my shoulders, but I do like this armor set. So I'll keep this as one of my outfits. That's a cool little tree house right here. I like this outfit. It's very cool. This is the only thing I spend my money on in this game, is transmogrifying.
That drip.
Gotta have that drip. That is absolutely true. Oh yeah, that looks dope. Let me show my helmet too, actually. Actually look like a paladin with a helmet on. That was a cool helmet. short cape is kind of cool. What can't I do? Hidden cloak. China's like too badass with their capes. Now I look like a paladin. Chop my tendrils off. Now I look like a radiant paladin. Yay! I'll be right back. I need to get another drink. Oh, no, I don't. Let's watch a video on YouTube. That's what I need.
Walk a
The
Chinese city
homeless
after midnight,
streamers
it looks
of
like somebody just
China.
moved their entire streaming studio outdoors. Everywhere you look, ring lights, foldable chairs, tripods, girls in dresses doing karaoke next to a trash bin. It's like if The Voice in China went bankrupt but just decided to keep going on anyways. Now here's the thing, they're not exactly homeless, but they definitely do look like it. So who are they? And why are entire streets just turning into live stream farms at night? It kinda looks like a mix of those Chinese flea markets, but mixed with a reality TV show. So here's the deal. In places in Changsha and Chengdu, there's this new phenomenon that people are calling the under-bridge live stream zones. Basically, when the city goes to sleep, the influencers come out. By 9 p.m, the bridge underpass starts lighting up like runways. Hundreds of people setting up power banks, stools, and ring lights. It's a fine line in between begging and performing, and they call it stall style streaming. It's like setting up a little shop, but instead of selling fried squid or, you know, some clothing or socks, you're selling your personality, as well as how much you can embarrass yourself in public. And well, business is booming, because in China, where the live stream economy is like worth over 700 billion yuan, even an underpass under a bridge can become an office. Like, just imagine your 9 to 5 ends, you clock out, and then another person clocks in, just, you know, right under the bridge you just drove by. Now you must be thinking, why outside? Like, why not just stream from your room like a normal influencer, right? Firstly, well, they say outdoor streams look more interesting because there's no fancy setup, there's no rented studio, it's legit just real life. And second, the streets come alive at night. Most people like us doom scroll between 11 p.m. to 2 a.m., which is the absolute perfect time to catch those night owls and lonely office workers. And of course, there's a cost when it comes to live streaming. By doing it under a bridge, there's no rent and there's no lighting bill. There isn't even light outside. Just bring your ring light, portable charger, foldable chair, and maybe some mosquito spray. Because once those mosquitoes show up, you're kinda cooked. Nothing humbles an influencer faster than just losing to nature itself. Natural selection. Damn, they all got potential. Oh, whoa, 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 whoa. What's going on back there? I mean, yeah, like, why pay 3,000 yuan for like a studio when the city already built one for free? Now let's talk about the hottest spot, the Guilin Nanzhou Bridge. Every single night, this bridge essentially just turns into a low-form budget of Douyin headquarters. Hundreds of creators sitting side by side, screaming into their phones. Tap the heart, brothers, don't let me drop in ranking. They have setups that look like mini gaming rigs. Got LED lights, sound cards, foldable sofas. It's like packing for a camping trip at this point. Somebody even brought a thermos and a massage pillow. And then they kind of formed their own little strange ecosystem. Because there are veteran streamers mentoring the newbies. There are even talent scouts walking around to look for potential. And of course, you know, your good old auntie snack vendors who realize that they can just start selling their instant noodles next to these exhausted streamers. One top female streamer bragged that she made 100,000 yuan a month. That's around $14,000. But next to her, another girl says she only made 30 yuan after 6 hours. That's $4. Basically, this is just a bridge version of capitalism. It's like if you took a streamer factory and just mass produce them on the sidewalk. Not gonna lie, this is kinda dystopian at this point. And it's funny that they all have the same kind of ring light too. So you know some of these are just under a single agency. Now here's where it gets wild. These homeless live streamers aren't just selling beauty or talent. They're essentially just selling their pity. Like, think about it. A girl dressed like she's going to a fashion show, sitting under a bridge, singing to her phone while cars and trucks pass by. People watch and then they think, hey, yeah, she's so hardworking. Let me send her some coins and gifts. It's the pity aesthetic. You look just pitiful enough to earn some sympathy, but not to the extent where it starts getting too depressing. See, it's like a fine balance between I'm struggling, but make it cute. And clearly it works. Because on platforms like Douyin, Kuaishou, Bilibili, the main income comes from gifts. So like digital coins, flowers, cars, yachts, all paid for by emotionally invested strangers. Except the catch is just absolutely brutal. Because let's say you earn 100 yuan in gifts. The platform will take 50%, your agency will take 20%, and you keep maybe around 30%. So congrats, you just streamed like 6 hours outside under a bridge just for some bubble tea money. But you know why people still keep going? Because one viral night can change their lives. That's where the addiction comes in.
好吃难做的噻，你看嘛，是吗？兄弟们，这是哪里啊？为什么现在好多？
Now here's what many people don't see. Many of these streamers are not working alone. Behind them are small MCN agencies, basically a live stream farm. They recruit random people off the streets like it's Squid Game, give them training on how to cry and make fake emotions on cue, then they hand them a mic and say, congrats, you're an influencer now. It's like those K-pop recruiters, but without any dorms or salaries. It's gotten to the point where these agencies rent bridge spots, organize groups, and even schedule shifts. 8 p.m. to midnight, midnight to 4 a.m. It's your 9 to 5, as well as your 5 to 9. And then they tell you things like, keep chatting even when there's no one watching, because stopping means losing the flow. It's not wrong. On Douyin, silence is
That's
death. So
that's how
why
I
they just talk
stream.
nonstop even
I just
when no
talk
one's
to
watching.
myself.
It's absolute content.
But I don't even really
purgatory.
talk to
And of
myself.
course, not everyone's a fan of this.
Sometimes
Some
when I'm
locals have
monologuing.
nicknamed the Nanzhou Bridge Beggar Bridge.
He's
Some complain they can't even
monologuing.
sleep when there's music and ring lights just blasting everywhere. So many pretty girls. Why are they all shouting under a bridge? But you know what their response to it is? We're not streamers. We're not beggars. We're entrepreneurs. I mean, they kind of are. They found a free workspace with no rent. They self-advertise. They build a community. But the line between begging and hustling does start
That's how most streamers do it.
especially when your income is just solely based on strangers' amount of pay.
They just talk to
Because one
themselves.
bad night and your self-worth literally drops with your viewer count. Even police
It's hard
have
to
tried
do
to
that.
clear
It's
out
hard to
these bridges. So
monologue.
every time they do, the streamers just migrate
That's
to
like
the next
psychopath
closest bridge.
tendencies
That's the
if
thing.
you-
An economy that's
if you're
built
good
on
at
desperation,
monologuing.
as well as Wi-Fi. Can't destroy that.
Yeah.
And a lot of people fetishize this sad girl aesthetic. So they pretty much just cry, sob, and just start venting, and it just loops over and over again.
Dude,
But they
what?
roleplay the
This guy has
primary,
like a
you know, because it
StarCraft
sells.
fucking
That's how things
mount?
have become
Did you see that?
nowadays. You can now
No.
monetize
What the hell
pretending
was
to
that?
be broke. But somehow this feels a bit more real than rich guru influencers in their luxury apartments. Because
Oh,
at
right
least
here, right
under
here.
the bridge, there's no really pretending that it's easy. This whole trend
Dude,
makes
I don't
sense,
know
you know.
what
Maybe
that
I'll
is.
start doing it.
That's
in a
not
couple years.
StarCraft.
Rent is up, unemployment is high. The
Oh.
traditional jobs that
I
ensure
don't
that
know
you
what
have
that was.
financial security, especially in China, it's just not safe anymore. So streaming becomes the gold rush. But instead of digging for gold, you're just digging for attention. You see, it's kind of ironic. They have more gear than some studios, even more consistency than some other startups. Next time you see a homeless streamer pop up on your feed, it could be under a bridge, under a sidewalk. I don't know how you get under a sidewalk. Remember, they're not just chasing for the clout, they're surviving. Because in 2025, in China's economy, the bridge is the new stage. Gather with me and let's all migrate to the nearest bridge and start streaming.
That would be funny.
You ever wake up one day and think to yourself, when I get married, wouldn't it be amazing to live
That would be
stream a
funny.
proposal while selling sanitary pads, toilet paper, and tissues? Oh, and whichever woman I blindly pick will have to be the wife for the rest of my life.
Dude, they're
We're talking
crazy
about
in
Yin
China.
Shiheng and Tao Lulu, aka the couple that turned their marriage
Why?
proposal into a live shopping market, making
How
millions
they
before getting
stream
a
and
630-year ban. But to understand how it got that
just
bad,
the
we need to start from the
just the
beginning. Believe it or
China
not, Yin Shiheng was once
drama
normal, just
influencer
like us.
circle
He was
is
born in
really
1999
interesting
into
to me.
a pretty ordinary family. Nothing flashy, nothing special, no generational wealth. Then his parents went through a really ugly divorce when he was around 13 or 14. Yin later said this moment broke something in him. He didn't want to be a part of that family anymore. He didn't want to depend on anyone. So what does he do? He drops out of school at 14, leaves home, goes to a bigger city with basically nothing. Yin then starts posting on WeChat, and not just for fun. He was using WeChat to find people with money and sell them absolutely anything. We're talking face masks, cosmetics,
Please
skincare.
don't
If it
kill
could be
them so
sold,
fast.
he sold it. And this wasn't just normal reselling, it was a borderline pyramid scheme. He also opened a pet store claiming that it was in the honor of his dog. He publicly said that all profits went to animal rescue and that he wanted to help stray animals. Whether fully true or partially curated, it worked. He eventually launches a skincare brand called VKKE, which was massively successful. And this is where the domineering CEO image was born. Rich CEO, animal rescuer, rags to riches. In 2019, Yin finally joins Douyin. At the time, as he was growing his fan base, he was in a long-term relationship with another influencer. Her name is He Jingjing. Now this is an important part of the lore. They were together for 4 years. This isn't like we met in DMs last month. They met each other's parents and they were pretty much pre-engaged in the eyes of the fans. Viewers shipped them hard and gave them a nickname, Han Jing. And if you know Chinese internet culture, you know once fans start shipping, they're emotionally invested like shareholders. And in July of 2020, Yin announces something big. He's going to propose to Jingjing on live stream. He's like, guys, she's the one. Now pause. Already that should have told us everything. A proposal is supposed to be very private and emotional. So why is it being scheduled like a product launch? But fans were excited. The numbers were up and the stream was about to start. And then it didn't happen. Jingjing broke up with him. He says he was going to propose and there were these gifts behind him and there was these candles lit up. He said he never expected Jingjing to break up with him last second.
我真的做不到，以后我看着别人，我真的做不到，以后我看见你跟别人。
Now here's the strange thing. We don't know why Jingjing broke up with him. Yin never told us. Netizens felt betrayed. A 4-year relationship. I need some time to heal is not what an alpha male domineering CEO like Yin would say. Fast forward a couple months and Yin introduces his new girlfriend, Tao Lulu. Right away, the vibes are different. He said he'd moved on from Jingjing and that Tao Lulu, she's different. Guys, she's the one. But for sure this time. Now, Yin is short, and not even insulting him, it's just factual. And he starts leaning into this tiny CEO aesthetic, talking like he owns half of Shanghai. Shout out to my short kings, by the way, this one's just an odd one out. Meanwhile, Tao Lulu had her own reputation online. Netizens noticed that she often showed up with greasy hair, and Chinese netizens, being Chinese netizens, crowned her as the oily-haired princess. Put them together, and they cooked up a nickname. Short Love Oily. From day one, this relationship had commercial fingerprints all over it. Then he starts teasing a surprise proposal. Yep, this is his second attempt now, because the first one couldn't fulfill his lifelong dream of live streaming his proposal. Talking stage? Dating? Let's just get straight to marriage. Of course, netizens were like, you just met this girl. Now we hit the moment that changed everything, the moment that got him trending across all of Douyin. Yin starts the live stream for his marriage proposal. This stream lasted 2 hours. Let that sit for a sec. People sitting at home watching the stream like, okay, surely the proposal is coming up next. It doesn't. He edges us to the brink of divorce. On stage, Yin brings out 4 women, all of them wearing traditional red bridal veils. The women were also barefoot while Yin was wearing platform shoes. Don't ask me why. Then the host tells viewers, guess which one is Tao Lulu? One by one, Yin lifts each veil. Plot twist, none of them are Tao. Every single reveal turns out she's an influencer as well. Go follow her. She's live tonight. They all introduce themselves, promote their own channels, and perform some odd tasks. Here we even have this lady caught in her own dress, like struggling to go. This segment alone drags for over 2 hours. At one point, this man even flashes a pregnancy test on camera. People in the chat were losing it. Like, is this a guessing game? So is he engaged or not? Like, why am I still here? But nobody leaves. We're so invested that nothing in life even matters anymore.
等一下讲，念一半。我看过他直播啊，我再跟你们讲一下他直播是什么直播，吴美颜直播。闭嘴。
Eventually, Tao Lulu finally appears. Yin kneels down, says a few emotional lines, and you thought this was going to be the climax. But you're wrong, because every 30 seconds, he delays the proposal to stand up and say, thank you for the rocket, appreciate the gift, don't forget to follow.
然后从那之后，我发现你是一个，别动了，我都不知道怎么说了。
One of his top donators, Mr. Coke, enters the chat, and Yin gets up from his knees and is like, welcome back to the stream, Mr. Coke. Everybody say hi to Mr. Coke. Thanks for the big rocket, Mr. Coke.
可乐来了，欢迎可乐，欢迎我宝哥，我乐哥来了，周周也来了。
Then immediately after, he told everybody to buy 10 packs of tissues for 8 yuan.
加油，声音大一点，加油，声音唱大点，加油！啊！
The proposal, it only lasted 15 minutes. And he claimed he sold over 8 million yuan worth of tissues. Are they still selling napkins tonight? I saw them the other day and laughed so hard I almost threw up, but I didn't have time to buy any. And Yin replied with, we sold 8 million in the last hour that day, but we won't sell them anymore today. More than 10 million people watched the stream, and both Douyin and Kuaishou went into like a meltdown. Short Love Oily trended. A bunch of memes came out about him saying like, thanks for the gift mid-proposal. Netizens weren't even angry yet. They were just like, this is the most shameless thing I've ever seen, but I can't stop watching. And he definitely took advantage of his upbringing and his past to promote the narrative. Like, he entered society at 13, struggled, did hairdressing, opened a restaurant, almost bankrupt, left alone. Then I met you all and you stood behind me, by my side. And Yin, he realized that he unlocked the ultimate wealth code. But guess what? After that stream, they broke up. Because Lulu claimed that Yin was still talking to his ex, Jingjing. From here on out, every single conversation they had, every dialogue, every word was through posting videos. This was their only form of communication. At this point, we are part of the relationship as well. Two people who truly love each other don't need any way to contact each other. They cried on camera, they reconciled on live stream. Every argument, every apology became content. Yin would constantly tease, "Come to my live tonight at 8 p.m. and I'll explain everything." Netizens literally started treating his content like a TV series, like naming with episodes. Season 2 episode 20, advertising. Season 2 episode 15, want little CEO. I'm still waiting to buy my paper. And in early of May 2021, a video starts circulating. It shows Yin Shihang late at night eating with another woman. Not just eating, they're feeding each other and holding hands.
殷世航，你跟那个女的拍那么暧昧视频，你叫我别在意，给我发几条消息，发个视频叫我回来吧，我就要回来。你在搞笑吧？而且我现在过得很好，也不需要你了，不要来找我了。
I can't believe it. Now, if you're single, whatever. But remember, this man is actively selling a webtoon engagement plot with Tao Lulu. Netizens were not happy about this.
露露，拍个视频而已，你真的过分了吧？拍个视频很过分吗？我希望你不要在意了。最后给你一次机会，今天过来，回家。如果再不回来，别逼我。
Tao Lulu finds out and does the most dramatic thing possible. She claps back by posting a video of herself with another man.
殷世航，你说跟一个女孩子拍视频没什么是吧？那我今天跟这个男的拍，看你什么感觉？
Now this man kinda looks like Yin, which makes it even more toxic. Like psychological warfare levels of petty. Yin responds by doing what he does best, crying on camera. He films himself throwing a tantrum on the street, begging Tao to come back. He's like, "Have you been talking to this man the whole time we've been dating?" And then he pours water on his head for some reason.
露露，我长这么大从来没有这么伤心过。当你跟他拍视频的那一刻，我才知道，我真的错了，我错了。回来好不好？
And once again, views spike, followers increase. And to win Tao back, Yin decides to outdo himself. He pulls up with Rolls Royces behind him, declaring his love for her, a giant bouquet of blue roses, and even crying speeches about love. In all of these, he teases something big. An engagement ceremony on May 15th, live streamed, so everyone can witness Tao Lulu's happiness. Tao softens up, but doesn't forgive him yet. Instead, she drops a pretty normal condition. Tao says that she'll consider getting back together if Yin can find an airplane and write her name on it. I think that's pretty reasonable. Now let's be clear, you can't just casually rent planes like it's an Uber. But this is Yin we're talking about, so he does exactly just that. As if that wasn't enough, Tao's parents allegedly demanded a 5.2 million yuan dowry, which is a wedding gift. 2 days before the engagement, he uploads a video opening 2 suitcases. Inside, 5.2 million yuan in cash. Racks on racks. No shame. Tao responds with a video of her crying. "Are you really prepared to spend your whole life with me? Please start a live stream. I'm out of toilet paper and stuck in the toilet." Now we arrive at the main event. Yin changes his account name to Yin Shihang Engagement on June 1st. He announces there will be a huge ceremony his parents will attend, and his ex-girlfriend, Jingjing, has something to say. People immediately speculate, is He Jingjing coming? That would be pretty odd considering that is his ex. And we'll get to that in a sec. At 9 p.m, the live stream begins. Yin makes his entrance riding a miniature pony. He's surrounded by bridesmaids, groomsmen, all influencers. If I'm being honest, it looks less like a wedding and more like a low-budget variety TV show. Now, the host brings out 3 women in veils. Here we go again. Tao Lulu, He Jingjing, and a random person. Yin is told, if you choose wrong, you must break up. It's almost as if I've already watched this before. Even viewers were tired at this point. Then Yin brings out his father on stage. And this guy was trying so hard to lock in.
我是殷世航的爸爸，今天是我宝贝孩子，订婚，我很开心，非常的开心，开心的有点激动啊！你开心吗？开心。有多开心呢？很开心，开心就好，开心来一起开心啊！
Later, netizens exposed that this man was actually a 26-year-old influencer named Bobo, and that he was probably just rented for this event. I mean, damn, who would have known that wasn't his dad? Netizens were like, height really can be inherited. His dad looks to be in his 30s. Wow, baby is so young. Also, the He Jingjing that appeared, it wasn't even her. She later revealed that she was only gonna come for the money and that Yin offered her 120,000 yuan and he still owed her 20,000 yuan. So this time, for 5 hours, Yin sold fake Rolex watches, fake Cartier bracelets, YSL perfume, face towels, knives, and of course tissues. And one more thing, sanitary napkins that Tao supposedly uses.
国风口红，打个用心啦，耐刮耐磨，怎么磨都磨不坏，用心打用心。
He also sold this 520 gift box that was supposedly limited, and Anedison bought it only to find out that the entire box set only costed about 30 yuan to produce. But Yin sold it for 138 yuan on stream, which allowed him to make over 5 million yuan from just this one product, which tells you it definitely was not limited. So after 5 hours after this long journey, all the friends we made along, he finally proposes to Tao Lulu, and then he proceeds to announce his wedding day, which will also be live streamed. Of course. The stream ends at 2:23 a.m. It totaled over 1.77 million viewers and 45 million yuan in sales. Yeah, 45 million yuan in just 5 hours. That's $6.5 million. More than most people will ever make in their entire lives. Yin gained over 1.5 million followers and Tao gained over 800,000. But then 230,000 reports flood Kuaishou and Douyin. On May 17th, Kuaishou responds. This is considered vulgar hype, false advertising, selling counterfeit products, and abuse of live stream sales.
Oh,
Punishment,
damn.
230,000 day ban, which equals to 630 years. Netizens were like, even Sun Wukong only got 500 years. And Douyin also removes him, so you can't even search him up. Yin said his farewells to everybody, hoping that people would remember him. You would think he's like finally gone, but then he just appears on other platforms the next day. That announced wedding day also never happened. Why? Because they broke up again. Now both Yin and Tao Lulu posted content as influencers on other platforms, going their own separate ways and doing their own things, and people still watch them to this day. You know, sometimes even when you know it's all scripted, you're just too invested where you just can't take your eyes off the screen. So yeah, if you ever plan on live streaming your wedding, I'd be honored to act as your father. Okay, before we even start, let me tell you, this is not just any cheating story. Imagine you're a successful CEO of a company. Yeah, imagine. And your friend calls you telling you that he's attending a wedding. He sends you a video of the scenery. Oh wow, this is a very nice wedding. Like everybody looks so happy. I wonder who the bride is. Then you take a good close look. Wait a minute, that bride is my girlfriend. From a mother coaching her daughter on how to infiltrate a billionaire's family to marry their son while juggling 5 men at once and keeping it all a secret, this is like a 5-star level heist mission for Chinese influencers. Like we even got a feature from Wang Sitong, the daddy's money final boss, complimenting her elite level cheating skills like it's China's Got Talent. And it all started with Xiang Sixing, the mastermind at play. Now she was a massive Chinese influencer from Zhejiang. Regular city, regular family, but she had aggressive dreams. And when I mean aggressive, I mean they literally looked at their daughter and said, yeah, we're not letting genetics stop this bag. Xiang's parents had one clear plan, and it was to marry her into money. They poured basically all their savings into plastic surgery, and not just one surgery. This was a decade-long procedure. Basically, anything you don't like, fix it. By the time she hit her 20s, she looked absolutely nothing like her high school self. And she now lived by the saying that there are plenty of fish in the sea. Literally to the point where netizens crowned her as the female sea queen, or the time management final boss. Basically, the fish in the sea are the guys and she's the queen, meaning that she knows the taste of the sea. And look, say what you want, but it worked very, very well. She leaned into that influencer aesthetic hard, like that Douyin thirst trap hard. But here's the thing, looks alone don't build an empire. You need money, strategy, and traffic, but most importantly, somebody to sacrifice absolutely everything for you. Enter our CEO millionaire, Zhang Kefeng. Now, a millionaire, not with a B. And Zhang is Xiang's boyfriend. Now, Zhang Kefeng is a self-made entrepreneur born in 1989. And this guy owns multiple MCN businesses. And for anybody that doesn't know what MCN is, it's basically an influencer factory. Like, they manage creators, they push out traffic, monetize their live streams, and then they take a cut. Now, Zhang wasn't some broke manager either, okay? He drove luxury luxury cars. He had a villa, okay, pulling up to work in the 911, the classic young CEO starter pack. So I would say that he worked for his money, unlike some. He meets Xiang, and apparently it's love at first sight. Like, this guy falls head over heels for her. And like, I mean dangerous love at first sight. Like, the logic just goes right out the door. So he pretty much helped her become famous, and they even opened up the Taobao online shop together. So Xiang would model the clothes, and Zhang would handle everything with money, data, logistics, marketing, all of that. And pretty much over the next 3 years, this man does absolutely everything for her. I'm talking mortgaging his house to 1.7 million yuan, and even dropping casually 2 million yuan on just packaging her social image online. He registered a 500,000 yuan company under her name, and even gave her directly 1 million yuan as a wedding fund. And this guy also named one of his companies Yo Xing after her name. Okay, at this point, he has to be the one, right? I mean, he's literally using your name as one of his organizations. I mean, this is like peak financial and emotional investment here. Now, Zhang really was in love with her and really thought this was his future wife, okay? He did not act like a manager or like a boss towards her. He also wired her money constantly, and I'm not talking small amounts. Like, we're talking 50, 70, 80K just for daily expenses. And a year later, they start living together, you know, talking marriage, talking about the future, and Zhang pretty much assumes that everything here is locked in now. The past 3 years of building, loving, supporting, and funding their family together. In his head, he already crossed the finish line, you know, he's set. And slowly but surely, things start getting strange. Xiang reportedly suffered from mild depression, and she would constantly stay back at Taizhou sometimes to recover. Now, I'm not saying mental health is strange, but the context here gets pretty wild. One day, her mom calls, and her mother tells her to come back home for a blind date. Let me repeat that. While she's living with her CEO boyfriend for the past 3 years, her mother suddenly calls and invites her to come on a blind date with another man that she's never met before, like if that's completely normal. And who's the blind date? Su Junyu. Now, Su is not just some random guy, okay? He's the son of a billionaire. This billionaire family runs a real estate empire worth over 7 billion yuan. This is the big fish you want to catch. In her eyes, of course. At the blind date meeting, Xiang's mom literally coaches her on how to keep this rich, handsome man in check, okay? This was all a calculated move. And Xiang, she liked him. Not in the romantic butterflies way. She liked the opportunity. And she later admitted that she wasn't attracted to Su as a person. I don't like the rich boys. I like the rich boys' fathers. And then her mom straight up calls this a once-in-a-lifetime shop. Now, a couple weeks later, Xiang starts dating Su seriously, and they officially became a couple. While Zhang is oblivious to all of this, by the way. At this point, she's dating 2 guys at once, and it's not like a situation type of way. No. This was living 2 different lifestyles with 2 full-on relationships and keeping it all a secret. You might wonder, how did she even pull this off? Whenever Xiang wanted to see Su, she just told Zhang that she needed to travel for work. Shenzhen, Guangzhou business trips, right? And 4 or 5 days at a time, by the way. She'd even send Zhang photos claiming that she was just staying at her aunt's place. There's proof right there. Now, these photos taken at her aunt's place was actually Su's house. She was living with Su, meeting his family, meeting his friends, and basically test driving billionaire daughter-in-law life, while her boyfriend, Zhang, thinks that she's on a business trip. I mean, a not very ethical business trip. I know, big take. Now, Su's mother gifted Xiang a 100,000 yuan Cartier bracelet. And when you're receiving gifts of like these calibers, she really had to make it subtle. And whenever she was back at Zhang's place, she would only like wear it once in a while. Basically just being as low-key as possible. And in her own words, this is when Xiang fell for the family's wealth. And her mom encouraged her every step of the way. At this point, Zhang has no idea what's coming. He's building a future. He's planning weddings, right? He's wiring money to her. He already sees the vision, you know, he's imagining his future with her, you know, having kids. Unfortunately, at this point, you know, the audition for a rich wife has already begun. And I'll tell you what, she definitely scores top leaderboards with the amount of balls you need to pull off this next move. So it turns out Su was also cheating on Xiang with another woman. So this entire thing is just a cheating triangle. Xiang was cheating on Zhang while Su was cheating on Xiang. Now Xiang didn't really care, alright? She knew there was still potential left though. She did not want to just leave it out. So Xiang's mom, or I would say the cheating coach, told her to just stay with him, you know, brush it off, just swallow up the anger, and instead treat this as a negotiation opportunity. Listen, daughter, what you need to do is spin yourself as the victim here and get Sue's parents to apologize to you so that you can position yourself as the one saving their son. And here she wrote the infamous paragraph text to Sue's mom. These past few days have left a deep impression on me, but what happened with Soo Jun-yu is unbelievable. Over a month I treated this relationship with all my heart, but when I saw this, I was stunned. I can't imagine these words coming from the mouth of a man who claimed to love me. Every word felt like a knife stabbing to my heart. I gave him a chance to confess, but he didn't. He tried his best to deny it, but with such undeniable evidence here, how can he deceive himself? Oh my god, I'm running out of breath. I'm very touched, but I'll send the gifts back because keeping them would only make me sadder, and it's too heavy of a burden for me to bear. After typing these words, I'm in tears. I really can't say anything anymore. I'm just so fortunate to have met you guys, and this short time will forever be etched into my heart. Thank you, Auntie. Take care, and I hope your status is less than mine. Now, Sue's parents love Xiang because she had her own business. You know, she had things going for her, and to them, this was a great opportunity. They did not want to let go of this. This girl is so much more mature than our son, who just goes out all day, unemployed, spending our money so that he can get laid. We really have to keep this gem. So they were like, son, what the fuck? Go apologize right now on your knees. Are you stupid? They get in their private jet and fly to Xiang's town, and then Sue basically just begs her to give him one last chance. Xiang is, of course, like, fine, I'll let it go this time. Yeah, of course. So at this point, it means both Zhang, the CEO boyfriend, and Sue, as well as Sue's family, are in the same town together. And she did some galaxy level manipulation tactics to make sure that these two don't collide. There were many times where Xiang straight up invited Zhang to the apartment that she shared with Sue. Of course, this is when Sue wasn't home. There was always an excuse. Now let that sink in. Zhang walks into what he thinks is their place. Meanwhile, his romantic rival lives there too. Whenever Sue would come back, Xiang would just rush Zhang out and into a hotel. Hey babe, I just remembered something. Why don't you go check out this 5-star hotel nearby? And CEO Zhang, trusting her completely, just did it. Oh my god. Because they were sharing the place, she slept in the same bed as both of these guys. At different times, obviously, carefully scheduling visits so that they would never collide. Elite level planning. And before anybody says, there's no way she did this alone. Correct. She didn't. Her entire family was in on it, even her younger brother, and her mom was the mastermind. She cooked meals for Zhang while Xiang was away on her business trips, basically treating him as a future son-in-law, while at the same time coaching Xiang on how to manage a rich heir as well as how to emotionally string Zhang along until Sue was locked in. And later even coached her on how to write a farewell letter to Zhang once things went south. Like, this mother was different, right? Every coach always had somebody that taught them, so who the hell taught this mother on how to manipulate men? And her younger brother worked at the company office, so this guy was literally a lookout. If Sue suddenly showed up, he would just speed dial Xiang and quickly warn her to move Zhang away before like these two guys collide. And speaking of close calls, there was this one moment where Sue was about to show up at the same company where Zhang worked at. Now Xiang, without hesitation, introduced Sue as her brother and Zhang as her business partner. Now this happened through text before they met in person. Essentially, she prepped by saying, "Honey, my brother is coming to the office today, but he doesn't like it when we're so lovey-dovey together. So do your best to just act professional, stay formal, and don't touch me." Guess what? This worked. I don't even know whether to be impressed or concerned by their level of awareness. Mind you, Xiang was also sleeping with 3 other guys at this time, trying to leech off of every single one, but you know, of course, those are just side quests, alright? Those are not the main dish. The main dish is Sue. And it actually got to a point where she accidentally got pregnant with one of these 3 guys, and she decided to blame it on Zhang for not being careful. She literally had to get rid of this baby, and our CEO Zhang, he cried, he apologized. He felt really bad. He said he promises when the time's ready, he'll do anything for her, and that he'll make sure she's happy. And the fact that Xiang's mom said that she felt sorry for CEO Zhang, and then Xiang decides to say, "I can only bless him. Don't think about anything else," is just wild. And she says, destined by fate. Now let's talk about the amount of money that Sue's parents gave Xiang, because this is where netizens really lost it. Aside from the Cartier bracelet that she got, Sue's family gave her 18 million yuan in jewelry and gifts as a dowry. That's $2.5 million. Just some chump change for some small gifts. Throughout this, netizens joked that Xiang was just being auctioned at this point. The highest bidder wins. I mean, CEO's millions over 3 years compared to a billionaire family. Yeah. And Zhang slowly started noticing patterns. Xiang would arrive at the company during the afternoon and then just procrastinate. Like, avoid work, drag the time, and later he realized that that was her prime window for secret phone calls. She was juggling 5 men at once and still somehow keeping her schedule completely clean. Even when our CEO Zhang's mother was undergoing chemotherapy, Xiang would just be with Su living in their little lovebird's nest, completely no guilt, which went on for several months. Until March 20th of 2021. That's when everything exploded. Xiang tells CEO Zhang that she needs to go back to Taizhou because her grandpa is getting buried. This sounds serious, okay? So no questions were asked. Except she wasn't at a funeral. She was hosting a full-on wedding with Su at the Fangyuan Hotel in Jiaojiang. And this wasn't low-key at all. It was basically a wedding rehearsal. Like, it was a huge venue with guests, both sides of the parents, relatives, and Su gives her a bouquet of 999 roses. In front of everybody, she declares eternal love for him. You know, they were destined to be together. He is the one for her. Zhang's friend calls him, and he's like, hey bro, I'm at this like sick wedding right now, and like look at this huge bouquet of flowers. And take a look at the bride. Wait, she kind of looks familiar. Isn't that your... Yeah, I don't even think 5 days a week, 4 sets of 8 reps is gonna fix Zhang in this moment. You're sitting there thinking that your girlfriend is mourning a family loss, and then randomly your phone starts blowing up with her engagement pics. Now Zhang, of course, is like, what the fuck? So he starts spam calling her, and at first she doesn't really pick up, but after a couple more calls later, she picks up. And she says, sorry honey, I'm a bridesmaid at a wedding right now. I'll call you right back. A bridesmaid right after a funeral? And Zhang snaps. He rushes from Hangzhou all the way to Taizhou to storm the event. And absolute chaos breaks out. Like, the police get called because, like, Zhang started, like, going up to the stage, and then the billionaire's family's like, what is going on? Who is this guy? Is he trying to assassinate us? Like, get him away from us. Zhang gets arrested, and then at the police station, he explains everything. And then the police just felt so bad for him that they just let him go. And this is where his villain arc starts. After the wedding goes
Yeah,
up, Zhang
damn.
goes home absolutely
Man,
shattered.
I shouldn't have
3
laughed at
years
that.
of devotion. Money
Evil.
invested, emotions invested, his future wife completely gone. All of it replaced by a man whose only achievement in life was to be born in a billionaire family. And this is where CEO Zhang makes a decision that permanently changes everybody's lives. Back in Hangzhou, he starts digging through the house, and he finds Xiang's old phone. Instead of smashing it or throwing it away like any normal person trying to heal, he decides to hire a technician to restore everything. WeChat logs, photos, timelines, receipts, all revealed. Gathering all of this, he creates a 65-page PowerPoint that will go down in Chinese internet history. This was a full-scale expose with slide after slide detailing the relationship, the amount of money he spent, the cheating, the lying, and all the manipulation tactics that she used with Su and him. Now, before anything, he first sends the PowerPoint to Xiang's parents. Not to go public yet, he just wants an apology, some accountability, you know, just some closure, just something from them. And the mother's response? My daughter works hard to generate profits. So Zhang then leaks parts of the PowerPoint online, and the internet explodes. And this story rockets to #1 on Douyin trending, top 5 on Weibo, and everyone's talking about it, even Wang Sitong. Yes, the son of the richest man in China back in 2017. He's pretty much the billionaire nepo baby playboy of China. Wang Sitong comments on Xiang's Weibo, calling her a high-level player, admiring her elite skills of time management. Just that one comment alone turned this scandal into a nationwide controversy. Memes flood everywhere, people calling Xiang the female sea queen. Her time management skills become like a running joke, and people said her mom could even start a paid online course for marrying into rich families. And honestly, Zhang's 3 year of devotion pretty much meant nothing when compared to like the Cartier bracelet or even the 18 million yuan dowry. And of course, Xiang fights back. She posts a statement on Weibo saying that the PowerPoint is a malicious fabrication. On WeChat, she claims that she was trapped. She accuses Zhang of physical abuse, and when they first went to business together, it caused her severe depression. She said she went home to recover, but only returned from his persuasion, in which then she got abused again. She said that Zhang used psychological manipulation to control her, and that he refused to sign the contracts, didn't pay her properly, and even treated her like a money-making tool. So she left and got got engaged to Sue, and when Zhang stole all the private information about her and leaked everything online, the cyberbullying and harassment completely ruined her emotionally. Now, what's important here is that she never denies the chat logs, and she never denies the multiple relationships either. She later posted photos of antidepressant medications online and said that her mistakes were rooted in depression. The netizens were not convinced. So eventually she issues a big apology, and then she promises to become a sunny, positive, energetic girl from now on. Now at the same time, people start questioning CEO Zhang as well. Why are all the chat logs only from Xiang's side? And if you spent millions, why no bank records? Netizens also found out that the company that was named after Xiang was only giving her 10% of ownership. Zhang's MCNs controlled the rest, and their livestream sales apparently exceeded over 20 million yuan in 1 year. So she was making him a fortune while being underpaid. And even friends of Xiang claimed that she and CEO Zhang had broken up many times already before. He would even stay in hotels every once in a while. So, you know, it means their relationship was not good from the beginning. And even after the scandal, her Douyin account stayed under his control the entire time. So it was still gaining followers and views. So netizens all kind of agreed that possibly everybody here is guilty. And then Sue's billionaire parents find out everything. Like, they were pissed about how their entire family is now involved in this like nationwide scandal, to the point even Wang Sitong got involved. So their reputation is kind of cooked, right? They also threatened to disinherit Su from his 1 billion yuan inheritance and just send him abroad. They then demanded the return of that 18 million yuan dowry that they gave to Xiang, and for Su to just cancel off the engagement completely and never talk to her again. Initially, Su was like, no, I can't do it. I have to stay with her, you know? She's the one. Honestly, like, we were destined to be together. We still love each other so much, and if we have to, we'll have to fight through this together as lovers. But eventually he just caves under pressure because, I mean, 1 billion yuan is 1 billion yuan, right? So then Sue's mother got hospitalized due to anger. So Xiang posted an apology video, crying, apologizing, you know, all that good stuff. Meanwhile, Zhang actually had to serve 6 days
few
in jail
fun
for
guys.
illegally accessing her phone and just leaking everything to the world. After getting out, he says he's finally ready to move on. He's restructuring his MCM business and hired a new female live streamer to replace Xiang. And then after a couple months later, he starts dating this live streamer as well. I don't know about you, but after 3 years of devotion, no healing? I mean, maybe he's just built different like that, I guess. And eventually, Xiang starts fading from the online presence, her appearances start to slow down, and then she writes a reflective article admitting moral failure and promising self-improvement. And from all of this, one thing is clear. Nobody won, okay? Everybody here ended up worse than they started. Xiang chased wealth, lied to multiple men, and treated relationships like a transaction. Su and his billionaire parents embraced Xiang when it felt like it suited them, but then just dropped her immediately after the moment the scandal started threatening their image. And yeah, that PowerPoint will live on forever. So yeah, that was truly a wild one, and I actually want to know your guys' thoughts on who you think is in the wrong here. And there might even be some evidence that we never saw, because like, I mean, behind the scenes, there's usually always a manipulator manipulating the manipulator. Who's one person you trust your life with? I mean, besides me, of course, it's your doctors, right? But what if I told you that the doctor who you trust your life with, or even more importantly, who you trust your face with, could literally just be some random guy on the street? Because currently in China, there is a massive trend of these so-called ghost doctors or ghost clinics, which are fake hospitals and underground beauty salons that are using patients as test subjects. Ever since the whole Douyin face aesthetic has popped off in China, there's been apps such as Soyoung and Gengmei that scan your face to recommend what plastic surgery you need next. And even some of these super dystopian commercials that are indirectly promoting ghost clinics and underground operations. But these apps don't just function like an online purchasing tool, they're social media platforms as well. You'll see people posting before and after surgery diaries, influencers giving recommendations, and everybody just makes posts to compare their procedures. You can also take out plastic surgery loans and happily end up in debt. Definitely not a billion-dollar insecurity industry or anything. And of course, this insane demand of perfection has created an underground industry for people trying to cash in as fast as possible. Since you have to keep up with millions of young people trying to become Douyin supermodels overnight, cosmetic clinics started popping up everywhere in China. But here's the problem. a huge number of them aren't even licensed, which ultimately ends you up with ghost doctors, who are people with little to no actual medical qualifications, injecting random substances into human faces for profit. Many of these clinics are also just operating in plain sight, and it's kind of scary how real and professional they look. Most of them are even massive companies that have multiple locations across China as if they were qualified. And these doctors are pretty much just doing it for the bag or just using people as training. So naturally, when you have amateurs doing plastic surgery using 1-minute tutorials, hundreds of accidents happen. And some people even go through WeChat to invite these doctors into their own homes for injections. Mainly because the clients avoid public attention and the fake doctors avoid accountability. So if something goes wrong, good luck. I mean, at this point, it's basically like the Wild West because, I mean, cosmetic surgery is insanely profitable, so people are willing to cut every corner imaginable. Which eventually leads us into one of the most viral and disturbing cosmetic surgery stories in China. The case of a massive Chinese celebrity who ended up with a completely dead nose. Gao Liu, she's a massive singer and actor who's been in the game for a long time now. And if you were on Chinese social media around that time, this case was everywhere. Back in October 2020, one of Gao Liu's friends introduced her to a surgeon who was working at a clinic, and this was in Guangzhou, called Saucywithatwist Medical Aesthetics. At the time, Gao Liu had been told by all her friends and fans that her features were already pretty, except her nose. And because she worked in entertainment, she thought that maybe just a tiny adjustment would, boost her acting career. And you guys know that the entertainment industry over there is brutal about appearance. So Gao Liu agreed to what she thought was just a very minor procedure. She was assigned to this doctor named Dr. He, who was crowned at the time as the Nose King of Guangzhou. Nose King is crazy. And he was known by this title at the time. If you wanted to do anything to your nose, this was the guy to go to. He had done the most amount of nose surgeries in Guangzhou for those past couple of years, and he's known as the most experienced when it comes to noses. So she confidently signed the consent form. They also promised that she'd recover in just 2 weeks, so perfectly in time for her filming her new C-drama. Simple, right? The surgery ended up lasting 4 hours. And that's not just the crazy part, because during the operation, Dr. He removed her rib cartilage and her ear cartilage, then put it into her nose. And after the operation, things started going really wrong. When she woke up, she immediately felt this intense stinging pain, and her nose became inflamed and swollen really badly. Later on, Gao Liu discovered that during the surgery itself, her nose tissues were already becoming red and swollen, but the doctors just brushed it off and continued with the procedure. Like, instead of fixing the issue immediately, they basically kept her under observation, hoping that she would just magically heal herself. And for a few days, they just waited. But then, her nose turned completely black. Her skin was literally dying because her nose started becoming necrotic, and that image alone terrified people all across China. I mean, this is just straight out of a horror movie.
Jeez.
Because imagine trusting a beauty clinic with your appearance, your health, your entire career, and they basically are just using you as a beta tester. So only after the skin started dying did the clinic admit that they were wrong. So they suggested to do another surgery to just remove the implant. Then another surgery after that. So 2 surgeries in just the span of 4 days. And somehow her nose became even worse after that. So eventually she was just transferred to Guangzhou Southern Hospital to try to slowly get it fixed. Now, all of this had caused her to be suspended from 2 film projects that she was supposed to film that year. She said that she lost 400,000 yuan in income and was also facing a possible 2 million yuan breach of contract penalty. Her acting contract got terminated too, and on top of all of that, the medical expenses were piling up. At the time, this really mentally destroyed her, and she even admitted that she was in a really bad place with bad thoughts, because it felt like her entire career and appearance were crumbling to the ground. And you would think that after everything Gao Liu went through, the surgery, the pain, the necrosis, the clinic would be shut down, right? But they threatened to sue her instead. When Gao Liu tried confronting the clinic's management about compensation, Dr. He, the clinic director, and even their lawyers started threatening and intimidating her to not mess with them. And apparently they even threatened to call the police. So Gao Liu was basically like, bet, I'll call them myself. So then the police advised her to check whether this clinic really had the medical qualifications to perform this surgery from the start. And guess what she discovered? Dr. He didn't even have any qualifications to perform this in the first place. So he was out here harvesting rib cartilages and reconstructing noses without even having the proper certification to do the procedure. And since Galio was just one young actress, she felt powerless against a clinic that was part of a larger chain-backed operation with shareholders and even expansion plans. Like most people, imagine some sketchy alleyway scam clinic run by this one shady dude with a fake certification on the wall. But in reality, a lot of these places look high-end and professional. I mean, fancy interiors, huge social media pages, and most importantly, influencer endorsements. It was also revealed that this clinic already had a bad history because authorities found that Dr. He had actually received 5 administrative penalties between March and October of that year. So right after Galio's case exploded online, the clinic got fined, and Dr. He was banned from practicing for 6 months. Which, I mean, I feel like he should have just gotten his entire permit taken away. Now you'd think that would be the end of the story, but nope, they always have a plan. Weeks before Sisha time officially closed, a new clinic called Tingya suddenly registered at the exact same address. Surely just a competitor. A competitor with the same staff, same social media accounts, and the same Dr. He. Like, how's that even allowed? And somehow, Dr. He recently obtained his official plastic surgery license just back in April, despite being banned for 6 months. Meanwhile, the new clinic reportedly announced that they've opened over 30 branches across China. So after one of the country's most infamous botched surgery scandals, the operation basically evolved into a franchise. Netizens also review bombed them. I mean, take a look at this. Anyone who goes there is doomed. It's a maze of loops, a series of traps with arbitrary charges, costing hundreds of dollars. And if you do any search of Tingya Beauty Clinic, you'll see that their PR team is probably working overtime. Later, Gallo publicly explained everything on Weibo. She said no surgeries in the entertainment industry had become so common that they felt as casual as putting on a face mask. She also found out that if the implant had been removed immediately during the surgery, she might have actually just avoided necrosis completely, meaning the damage was preventable. But instead, the clinic just kept delaying and hoping it would automatically heal. And this mentally destroyed her. I mean, she spent over 61 days in Southern Hospital undergoing oxygen therapy and IV treatments. But at the end, luckily her nose did heal and she looks much better now. Now, ever since this incident, some clinics have eventually started to be exposed. Just last month in April, authorities in Malaysia raided an unlicensed Chinese beauty clinic ran by Chinese operators. The immigration officials discovered that the clinic had been operating without any approval from the Ministry of Health. And the owner was from China, who was running the business and reportedly making hundreds of thousands of dollars every year. They were able to detain 6 Chinese men and 7 Chinese women, and several local workers. They also discovered that none of them even had valid work permits, and some were even allegedly working under tourist visas while performing cosmetic surgeries. They were able to seize phones, CCTV systems, uniforms, documents. Basically, they shut down the whole operation. Now, some of the cheaper beauty salons don't have much leeway when it comes to having a plan B after getting cracked by the government. I mean, one of them literally ripped down their sign and tried to escape the country after getting exposed. There's this girl named Xiao Yang who was just 18 years old who visited this small beauty salon called Meng Meng Beauty in Henan province. At first glance, it looked like a normal salon, you know, manicures, eyelash extensions, and like a bunch of beauty treatments. But behind the scenes, they were secretly offering illegal injections. And the salon manager recommended Xiao Yang something called a water light injection, marketed as a cheap, affordable skin whitening treatment. The price was literally only 199 yuan, so $30. I mean, that was already the first red flag. But also, the worker wasn't even wearing like a medical coat or anything. Literally just disposable gloves, that's it. And after the procedure, similar to Gao, her face started swelling up in red. Within hours, her body erupted with these giant itchy rashes and ulcers that even developed on different parts of her body. So Xiao Yang's family rushed back to confront the salon, and it was empty. The owner had already removed the storefront sign, took down all the posters, and started hiding all the equipment in a small room. Apparently, they were already planning to reopen later on with different circumstances if things cooled down. Xiao Yang called them, texted them, no response. Eventually, news reporters got involved and barely managed to track down the salon manager just last minute. She confessed that the injection's main ingredient was tranexamic acid, which is normally used to help stop bleeding in medical situations, not injected as filler. And this part's crazy. Where do you think they got it from? WeChat. Not only that, but it was from a friend that she trusted. Hey, if you ever need counterfeit liquids, I got you hooked up. The product had no manufacturer or any official certification, meaning it was basically a Temu injection package. And to nobody's surprise, the salon only had a regular business license. Yet they were still injecting random substances into people's faces. That's the craziest thing about this whole underground industry, man, because some of these owners probably wouldn't even dare to inject this stuff into themselves, but they'll happily sell it to customers for profit. And even today, Chinese authorities are still trying to crack down on this. China's National Health Commission, alongside 13 other government departments, launched new campaigns targeting illegal cosmetic procedures and online medical scams. They specifically targeted fake online promotions on Xiaohongshu, people pretending to be patients, and unlicensed operators. Honestly, enforcement is like insanely difficult. Some live streaming agencies even pressure men and women to take out loans for surgeries, promising that they'll become famous if they do. Pretty much giving you the dream, if you fix your face first, the fame will come afterward. And behind the scenes, some of these influencers have agreements with these clinics and take commissions from every person they send over. It just gets more and more dystopian every time a new beauty trend pops up. And for these ghost clinics, it's a massive payday for them. So if you somehow end up at one of these ghost clinics or underground beauty salons looking to get an injection to, I don't know, increase a couple inches, maybe instead of asking for a free trial, tell them to try it first. And also, guys, I've recently partnered up with Cheeky Soap. Honestly, if you guys want to take more showers, you guys can check out Cheeky Soap using code WANI or use cheeky.com/WANI. And yeah. From Chinese beauty filters to the world of shadow clone makeup, how about we start modifying our heads as well? Yes, I'm serious. We're getting set back 1,000 years at this point. Now, Chinese beauty culture has always had a thing for baby faces. And this isn't new. You open Douyin or Xiaohongshu and it looks like everybody downloaded the same character preset. Big eyes, small face, completely no pores, and a nose that looks so small that it's like it's trying to hide from you. Men and women alike are all chasing that. Technically, I'm 24, but you know, I look like I just got picked up from a kindergarten class aesthetic. Now, digital filters don't harm your physical body, right? It just messes up your entire view on beauty standards. But what if we crank that to the maximum threshold and start putting plastic in our heads to look, you know, a bit more alien? Welcome to the Chinese influencer obsession with the so-called high skull beauty. If you've been doom scrolling on Douyin, you're gonna see many influencers bragging about their head wrapping face proportions like it's a Pokemon evolution. The concept is simple. If the distance between your hairline and the top of your skull is longer than the distance between your eyebrows and your hairline, congratulations. You've unlocked the ultimate proportional face. Just looking at it, it's a piece of art. Your head will be considered high, and once your head is high, your face will just magically look smaller. Ah yes, faces just exist only to be compared to other body parts. Disregard anything else. Of course, it's all about the angles, and this entire thing is basically an illusion just to trick you to think that you're chopped. They'll tell you it's a way to look younger, and it's completely normal and definitely safe. I mean, stretching your head like Play-Doh, of course it's safe. Now, it did start at the safer end, mainly with hair tutorials promising extra volume at the crown. Many influencers promoted headbands and foam pads, pretty much to just push your hair a bit more forward and higher. But let's be real for a second, the problem was never about having a flat skull or a big forehead. It all started because people were saying, if your head isn't high enough, then your face is big. And if your face is big, then you look old. And if you look old, you failed. Especially for influencers whose entire income depend on their appearance. Put the fries in the bag, little bro. And that's where the solutions came in. And by solutions, I mean injecting filler into your scalp so that your head becomes inflated like a balloon. The most common method being pushed by influencers is injecting hyaluronic acid directly into your head. And hyaluronic acid isn't like some evil substance, okay? Like, we use it, I personally use it in skincare, and everybody else does too. It essentially hydrates your skin. And here's the thing that they don't tell you. This is temporary. And also, your scalp is massive, so you need way more filler than you think to really make a big difference. And way more is an understatement. Now, there's this viral case about a beauty influencer who really wanted a high skull, and they ended up, sit with me here, having around 50 syringes of hyaluronic acid injected into their scalp. At first, everything seemed fine, and that's how most of these stories start, by the way. A couple of months later, she posted a video where she removed her headband and revealed a massive bald patch. She was crying on camera, explaining how that she'd gone for a crown lift filler 2 months earlier after she started watching face-to-head proportion videos. And a month later, her hair started falling out in clumps.
2个多月之前吧，我刷到一个大白，他在讲头脸比例、容貌的焦虑的驱使吧，我种草了，专门赶去上海用了高颅顶，就是在头顶的这颗位置。刚开始的时候没有太大感觉，只是觉得有一点红肿，然后痒，会起白屑，运动的时候都会觉得有种神经被拉着的感觉，容易头疼。我以为这是正常的恢复的过程，然后1个月之后我就开始掉头发了，慢慢的出现斑秃，并且一发不可收拾，到现在越来越严重。而未来3到6个月我可能都长这样，再加上我的职业因素，可以说生理上的折磨是一部分，但心理上的痛苦才是最煎熬的。
And the doctors believe that her hair follicles entered dormancy because the filler caused tension and restricted blood flow. In other words, your hair was basically fighting for its life. She eventually got the fillers dissolved, and then the doctor said that because there wasn't any permanent scarring yet, her hair might regrow back. Might. Okay, but what if we remove the temporary part? Because apparently injecting like 50 syringes into your scalp is clearly not extreme enough. And this is where our beloved material, cement, enters the chat. Well, bone cement, okay, not like concrete. Now, bone cement is a real medical material used in actual reconstructive surgeries. You know, the kind performed by licensed surgeons for medical reasons. Not so your face can look 3% smaller on Douyin. But here, bone cement is being marketed as the ultimate high skull solution. Absolutely no maintenance, and it's a permanent fix. Now, I was gonna explain exactly how this procedure works, but it is just so gruesome, so I'm just gonna put it in simple terms. They essentially open a small part in your scalp, inject the bone cement, and mold it like Play-Doh so that it fits properly. And then it starts to quickly harden and solidify, which then becomes permanent. Congratulations, you have a helmet in your head now. And around mid-2025, a 29-year-old woman from Jiangsu paid around 180,000 yuan at a beauty salon to achieve this perfect high skull look. Not a hospital, a beauty salon. I mean, that's already insane. She said that she always hated how her forehead looked for a very, very long time, and eventually she found out what bone cement filling was, and she knew that was the answer. Because obviously when you don't like your forehead, the solution is to drill into your skull. So she goes through the exact same step-by-step procedure I explained earlier, but according to some reports, this beauty salon apparently used staple-like clips to, you know, close the gaps, instead of like actual medical material.
骨水遗传过程第2弹，这就是放在脑子里的水泥。先来一个造型设计，半个小时做完了，现在出门去吃饭。赛小寒冬啥都不。
Alright, I'm
The
getting
entire
kind
procedure
of
took about 20 to 30 minutes.
wowed out.
That's a very fast procedure, first of all. She
What
left
are
with
you
a
up
bunch
to?
of bandages wrapped around her head, smiling.
Not much.
I'd expect her to be like, you know, maybe a bit nervous or like, this is kind of scary, you know? They're like literally opening your head. But no, she said that she wished she'd done it sooner. And people
Magic,
were shocked. Netizens quickly
that
pointed
one
out
game,
how having bone
that
cement
one
filling
version.
into
No.
your like head is, you know, asking for permanent brain damage. Not only that, but the short-term effects can
Why
easily
not?
disrupt blood supply directly
Factory
to your
game on
scalp,
Xbox.
as well as baldness, of course.
Oh,
and people
nice.
question how a beauty salon was even able to do such a procedure that is basically head surgery. And of course, a lot of people ask the most obvious question. What happens in about 20 years? Does he get removed? What if beauty standards change? Am I just stuck with 2026 high skull aesthetics forever? And trends change fast, and I mean extremely fast. Today could be high skulls, tomorrow it's something else. Now, do you guys remember this girl?
今年多大了？
Yeah, have you ever noticed something odd about their ears? So there's this huge elf ear trend where influencers are pretty much showing off their ears that are protruding outwards unnaturally to make their faces look smaller. It's pretty much the same idea, just a different body part. One influencer that went viral for this procedure was Chin Xianen. She posted about her elf ears on Weibo, sharing the before and after photos, pretty much saying that the injections behind her ear made her face look smaller. We can see from the before photos, her ears were barely visible from the front when her hair was tied up. After the injections, her right ear pretty much just jutted outwards, like it was trying to run away from her face. Now, what's especially ironic is that protruding ears used to be something that people got bullied for, and now it's rebranded as an aesthetic. You just slap on this cute little fantasy name to it, and now everybody wants it. Some netizens with natural protruding ears even joked, "So my ears that I've had for over 20 years are finally fashionable?" And because there's always somebody who takes it too far, our male celebrity here, Xiao Chaye, literally implanted rib cartilages into their ears to achieve the look. So essentially at this point, we're just swapping body parts like Lego pieces.
能贴出10万的效果，但你做你做不出来。我身边很多人做了精灵耳的假模体，挂回缩了，尽量是10万的耳朵，横着贴，一半的耳朵
And all these wild beauty procedures were marketed so hard by salons to the point where pretty much the trend outweighed all the risks. And that is exactly how aesthetic poids works. You're shown the rewards and not the consequences. Which is how we end up with people drilling into their heads because Douyin said that their faces would look smaller. Now on the bright side, not so bright, but fillers can be dissolved and your hair might grow back. But bone cement? That's not something you just grow out of. It's literally growing inside of you. You're permanently locking your body into an online trend that may just exist for like maybe half a year. And this brings us to our final boss, Lisa Yo. This girl got famous for transforming her appearance so hard that not even her friends and family recognized her. She openly obsessed over Korean and Chinese celebrities and, well, clearly, as you can tell, she just went all in. Multiple major surgeries, pretty much all aimed to look like this idol aesthetic. And transformation is an understatement. Her new face didn't carry any resemblance to her original features, so if you lined up old and new photos together, you would literally think that these are two completely different people that have never met. Netizens quickly pointed out her extremely high and overfilled forehead, as well as a noticeable raised back of the head. It's pretty obvious that her eyes, nose, and mouth all had been worked on, and every exposed part of her skin had pretty much been altered.
I tried Korea's latest beauty obsession ear fillers, and the results are shocking. If you've seen my TikTok about the ear tapes, you already know the look everyone is going for these days in Korea. After trying out the tapes and loving the result, I decided to get fillers to make my ears bigger. Then I headed into the treatment room and met Dr. Jong. First, I got a small anesthetic shot to reduce any pain. Just look at the difference after doing one side. Oh my god, the trend originated from China where people get this type of fillers a lot. And now a lot of Koreans getting it too. Honestly, it was totally manageable, just a little discomfort. My before and after. I'm obsessed.
Now, stories came out that she was actually a mixed race of Russian and Mongolian, and that she was bullied in school for having these Asian features. After moving to South Korea, she decided to completely transform her identity, and even deleting all the old photos and videos of herself to completely just try to wipe her traces off of the internet of her previous looks. Now, what makes this especially dangerous is that it's mainly targeted for an audience of regular people, just like me and you. Not everybody is a celebrity with loads of money or many options they can pick from. So then they start comparing the prices, filters, or surgery, temporary or permanent, except all of this is pretty much an illusion. Because your face didn't shrink, your skull just got higher. So without any angles or any other beauty filters, in real life, it just looks unnatural. You're essentially just trying to morph yourself back to the primal age, as well as putting a baby filter on your face. So what happens when a lower skull becomes cute again? Or maybe even round faces come back into fashion? Like, are people just supposed to sand down their skulls back to normal now? So yeah, if you ever look in the mirror and think that you're not enough, just remember, there are people out there spending hundreds of thousands of yuan to reconstruct their head shape because an influencer told them to. And honestly, if your biggest problem is that your forehead is too big, you're doing just fine. Stay human, stay recognizable, and for the love of God, please don't set us back another 100 years.
How do you put this behind you and move forward? That's something I ask each missing person family because I don't understand how you can do that.
I can't.
Yeah.
I mean, I want some type of closure. I want him to be found.
One of the most confusing and frustrating investigations by law enforcement is related to people who disappear in highly rural locations, forests, plains, deserts, and regions with few residences. These cases offer no witnesses, few clues, and a strange lack of evidence. Where are these people? How did they disappear without leaving a scent trail, no tracks, and a distinct lack of physical evidence? The investigator is left with a distraught family grieving about a missing loved one, wanting them found, where many times the search area is the size of a national forest. My name is David Politis. I'm a former San Jose police officer who has worked complex.
How do you put this behind you and move forward? That's something I ask each missing person family because I don't understand how you can do that.
I can't. I mean, you know, I want some type of closure. I want him to be found.
One of the most confusing and frustrating investigations by law enforcement is related to people who disappear in highly rural locations, forests, plains, deserts, and regions with few residences. These cases offer no witnesses, few clues, and a strange lack of evidence. Where are these people? How did they disappear without leaving a scent trail, no tracks, and a distinct lack of physical evidence? The investigator is left with a distraught family grieving about a missing loved one, wanting them found, where many times the search area is the size of a national forest. My name is David Politis. I'm a former San Jose police officer who has worked complex and long-term investigations while being assigned to vice intelligence, street crimes, SWAT, and various detective.
Add Chinese beauty filters to the world of
a
shadow.
movie?
How do you put this behind?
What?
Yes. You have to.
It's a black screen
You cannot let
on
that
my
stuff
What's a
go.
black? Your
on my
YouTube?
YouTube. Yeah, my YouTube window.
I want him to
That's
be
interesting.
found.
It's because it's in movies and TV. It's so people don't stream movies. Maybe I don't know. That's interesting.
Maybe.
Listening, sneakerheads are the worst.
What movie is it?
It was a alien movie.
I'm about to show you the most terrifying experiment ever completed. Not only because of the results, but because we are currently repeating the conditions of the experiment as a society. When I
Is it
first
Mouse
read about this,
Utopia?
I genuinely couldn't believe it. And it's
What
become
was that?
something I think about not
Oh,
quite
the
every
video
day,
I'm
but
watching.
many
The
days.
experiment that
After World
predicted
War
the modern
II,
world.
population growth peaked, and the
Have you heard
intelligentsia
about Mouse
predicted the
Utopia?
imminent collapse of society
No.
as population would outstrip food supply. This concept was
It was like
everywhere, but most famously was
they made a
captured in Paul
utopia
Ehrlich's
for
1968 book,
mice,
The
and
Population Bomb, where
they
he
ended up
wrote, quote,
going
"The battle to
crazy
feed
and
all of humanity is over. In the
basically
1970s, hundreds of millions of people
went
will starve to
went crazy.
death." And he said, "If I were a gambler, I would
in
take even money that England will not exist in the year 2000.
and
By
started
the way,
killing
that
each
man
other
continued
and
to be employed by Stanford for
getting
decades
angry
after
and
all his predictions and life work failed. President Nixon declared, "One of the most serious challenges to human destiny in the 70s and 80s will be the growth of population. I am not a crook." I don't know if he said it like that. In fact, population concerns were so prevalent that at the time, abortion was not even seen as a women's issue, but an imperative for population control. You had candidates debating not whether women had the right to choose, but how urgently we needed to get abortion to curb population growth. In the words of Ruth Bader Ginsburg, at the time Roe was decided, there was concern about population growth, and in particular, populations that we don't want to have too many of. This was so much the case that conservative President Nixon thought abortion was necessary sometimes, and didn't even release a statement when Roe versus Wade was decided under his presidency. And there was one
They weren't
experiment
utopias.
that lingered behind all of these predictions.
the
It's
Mouse
the experiment
Utopia.
Paul Ehrlich talks about in his book.
They weren't
the experiment
utopias.
that NASA and the U.S. government embraced.
They
The
weren't. What were?
experiment
They were just given a lot of food
the world. And even
Well,
inspired a Disney movie.
and then
essentially,
packed
like
shoulder to shoulder
Is Mouse
in a tiny exhibit.
And if you haven't heard of
well,
Mouse
no,
Utopia,
they had a
well, it
really
just might
big
change the way you see
They
roam
didn't.
As we
area.
established, everyone was so concerned
That's
about
why things broke
population growth
down,
in
is
the
because they were
20th century,
overcrowded.
because for the first
It was an
time in human
overpopulation
history,
experiment.
thanks to the Industrial Revolution, there was enough
There
food
there
and
were
water
houses
that
that
people
weren't
could have
even
kids, and those
used
kids would survive,
for
and
the
the population
mice.
exploded. But people worried that wasn't
They
sustainable. So in
they had
1958,
so many
Northwestern
houses,
behavioral
and all of
scientist John B. Calhoun,
all of them could
not to be
use it,
confused with
but
Vice
they
President John
never
C. Calhoun,
they never
It was
did. They
only
just
9 square
best
feet.
friends decided to run an experiment to
9
discover
square
if
feet. I thought
overpopulation
it was way
should be a
bigger.
real concern. With the goal of better understanding human behavior, he started a 5-year experiment with a rat colony. Mind you, humans and rats have extremely similar autonomic nervous systems and parts of the brain. Humans just have it on a much bigger scale. So what Calhoun did, he wanted to replicate how humans live in cities in a rat colony. and see how they react. So just like in a modern American city, he gave the rats abundant water, food, places to sleep, and protection from predation and disease. He created essentially a mouse utopia, hypothetically akin to the human utopia that we're all living in, thanks to industrialization. But Calhoun had a feeling there was something deeply wrong about the way modern society was going, and he thought his experiment might discover what it is. As the experiment began, the rats had all the resources they could ever need, so their population exploded. Their stress levels were down, and insofar as researchers could measure it, the rats were happy. And then after a year, the rat colony population hit 1,000. The colony wasn't physically overpopulated, it had room enough to fit 5,000, but it started to become socially overpopulated, meaning the rats no longer knew everybody, and they couldn't form personal communities. The same way academics say humans can only have real relationships with 150 people at once. Once you get beyond that number, there's no social cohesion. You don't really know the other person. So it became hard for the rats to form stable relationships, and they would increasingly start fighting the rats they didn't know. So the rats started to retreat. They didn't interact with each other as much. They kept to themselves. But the tipping point came at 2,200 rats. At this point, each rat felt he was surrounded by strangers. And even though there was enough food and mates for everybody, because rats are hierarchical, there became so much competition about getting food first, or getting the best mates. And if there are 2,000 other rats, you're gonna have a lot of competition. Calhoun noticed that the rats all started eating at the same time, which was strange because food was available all day. At the beginning of the experiment, the rats ate whenever they wanted to. But now, there is so much low-level conflict between these rats who don't know each other, who can't form stable relationships, that rats became extremely risk avoidant. So slowly, they would eat at the same time as other rats and realize they were safe, and they didn't interact with anybody they didn't like. And over time, they began to associate eating with other rats that they ate with, and then they began to never eat without their group. Even more bizarrely, there was a lot of unfilled space in the colony, and instead of rats exploring and taking new territory, they all became so scared of trying something new, of exploring a new location. Their stress levels were rising fast. The male mice fought to establish dominance, and after a couple months of this, a small number established themselves as the top mice. They would protect their territory, while all the remaining male mice fell into 3 categories. 1/3 of them became homosexual, or as Calhoun called them, pansexual. Their sexuality went completely haywire. They started trying to have sex with any mouse, regardless if it was male or a relative or female. They weren't just nymphomaniacs, though. They lived for the approval of other mice. They wanted the other mice to like them. They wanted to ingratiate themselves with those mice. So essentially, they were happy to perform sexual favors or even get beat up by the tougher mice, just so people would like them. The next third, I'm not kidding, became looks-maxers. Literally, they became completely asexual, but primped themselves all day, making sure they were as beautiful as possible, even though they never mated or really interacted with anyone. Are we starting to see some parallels here? The hormones revealed in their urine demonstrated extreme levels of stress, even though on the outside they looked calm. But their constant elevation of stress hormones is what made them so impotent, because their brain was constantly in overdrive and panic mode. The final third became incredibly violent and cunning. They would lie in wait until a dominant male left his girlfriend unguarded. Then, these mice would pounce and rape the female mice, or sometimes even the male mice. But the most disturbing part about them is that they would eat their own children. They would gather in packs to sadistically torture any mice who tried to uphold the original healthy societal structure that had preceded the population explosion. All societal coordination broke down. Think about the sack of Rome. Different barbarian tribes plundering each other, and no actual society. And I haven't even mentioned what happened to the female mice. As the social structure broke down, and each mouse felt he had to defend himself, the female mice who would usually create their family's nest completely stopped nest building and became incredibly aggressive, like the male mice. And she replaced long-term pair bonding with short-term mating with the most dominant mice. The females would attack other mice around them, and they became so angry and constantly distressed that it affected their children. Another really important factor here is the dominant males who were supposed to be protecting the mothers of their children completely stopped. They would wander away and stop protecting their territory, and that's why the mothers had to get so aggressive. They sort of forgot how to be mothers. They left their children behind, and sometimes let them starve to death. The children they did raise were incredibly socially malformed, and eventually, the colony reached an infant mortality rate of 96%. In humans, a highly stressed mother greatly elevates the risk of miscarriage. Eventually, the colony completely collapsed and all the mice died. But the scariest part was that Calhoun kept the final 8 mice at the end of the experiment alive and tried to form a new colony. But even in a new environment, those 8 mice were so permanently traumatized that they continued to exhibit the antisocial, fearful, and aggressive behavior, and the colony could never start again. And even their children, the children who were born far from the trauma of the colony that was long gone, even they exhibited that same fearful and aggressive response. The trauma went down to the level of the gene. But then, they decided to run the Mouse Utopia experiment on humans. In the early 1960s, the British colonial government forced the Eek people in northern Uganda to move from this wide open valley onto the top of a mountain. The Eek people were hunters and gatherers, and once they moved to the top of this random-ass mountain, all their social roles and all their hunting was no longer possible. So everybody's place in society went away. They became homogenous strangers to each other. In the words of Calhoun, suddenly everything they had ever learned to do had no meaning. And soon, all the behavior we saw in those mice came true with humans too. Anthropologist Colin Turnbull, who lived among the Eek, wrote they had abandoned the values of family, love, and altruism for a cutthroat individualism, only otherwise seen in Western civilization. He watched with horror as Eek men and women attacked each other, even their own siblings and spouses. They induced vomiting and then ate their own vomit. They left children and the elderly to die of starvation, just like those mice mothers did. After documenting these horrors for 300 pages, Turnbull wrote in his conclusion that the Eek lived on as a people without life, without passion, beyond humanity. Turnbull was so horrified, he actually asked the Ugandan government that the Eek people be forcibly separated from each other, so the remaining members don't all murder each other. And what's crazy, I'm sure you caught, that he compared the individualism of the Eek to the individualism of the West. So that's the upshot here. Both Turnbull and Calhoun saw so much of Mouse Utopia in modern society. We are isolated from each other. We don't have social rules or expectations. We feel like we have no responsibility for anyone else. And because of that, because we don't know who we are in relation to other people, we don't know who we are at all.
I don't
The
know
same
if
way
I agree with what he's saying, that people aren't social and don't. Well, maybe. I don't know.
People are inherently social.
Yeah, he's saying that we're not as social anymore. Everyone's locked up in. Not sure what he's saying.
the rats didn't know who they were.
I
And
mean,
just as
cut
the
someone
rats
off from the
became more
internet and lock
extreme
them in
to
a room
compensate
and
for
see
their
how
lack of
quickly they go
identity,
crazy.
right? Some became aggressive, some
Oh,
retreated
yeah.
into
Oh,
themselves.
yeah.
We humans are doing the same thing. We don't feel like we have distinct roles, that society notices us, and we have some place in society. I'll prove it to you. In the 1950s and 60s, men and women had very strict social roles, and no one was confused about them. So the leading men of the time, Clark Gable, Gregory Peck, Jimmy Stewart, were definitely masculine, but often in a subtle way that would feature emotional vulnerability. Then second-wave feminism in the 70s and 80s called a lot of that into question, championing the idea that men and women are the same, or at least should be functionally the same in society. And as a reaction, the masculine characters of that time, for the first time, felt that they had to prove they were masculine, because suddenly just being a man wasn't distinct enough. So all the male movie stars of the 80s had these huge 8-packs, and they'd be 6'4" shooting a bunch of machine guns, because the distinction of masculinity everyone agreed upon 20 years earlier was gone, and our larger societal isolation, where we don't have any relationships with anybody else, is why we're all doom scrolling at home. Why there are so few celebrities in Gen Z and Gen Alpha compared to previous generations. The youngest mainstream celebrity I can think of in the world is Olivia Rodrigo, and she's 23. Some of the Beach Boys were 16 when they became famous for a band they created. We're not doing creative things anymore. We're all so beat down and alone. And why it's so rare for anyone that you talk to have these great non-monetary ambitions for their life. Think about Hamlet. If you haven't seen the play, don't worry. It's Shakespeare's magnum opus about a prince questioning the nature of reality. What's true, what's false, what's beautiful, what's ugly, and more importantly, who he was and what he was supposed to do. And when you have that kind of identity crisis, you can't move forcefully in the world. You can't do things. And that's what we're all experiencing as a culture. People feel like there's nothing to their identities. So how can they do anything if they don't know who they are? Hamlet said, "I have lost all my mirth. The beautiful sky seems to be nothing more than a foul and pestilent congregation of vapors." We are all now Hamlet. We increasingly don't think that, skies are objectively beautiful. If we experience a beautiful sky at all, we just think, oh, that's because we subjectively are having neurons firing in our brain that tell us to enjoy the sensual experience of blue in the atmosphere. We don't think we're just a person looking at a beautiful sky. And this is why a lot of scholars identify Hamlet as the first modern character. I was thinking about this the other day. Think about reading a play or a novel by Virgil or Aeschylus from the Roman Empire. Think about how much distance there would be between you and the characters, how foreign their world would be. And it's not just because they lived before technology. It's so much easier for me to identify with a Shakespeare character or Herman Melville character or Jane Austen character. Because even though they also don't live in my modern world, they question their identity. They wrestle with who they are and what their society is. They didn't do that in Rome. They knew exactly what they were as a society and what everyone's place in it was. People feel like their lives have become sterile because everyone now acts so homogenously, and it's boring and it's meaningless. This is why Walter White felt the need to break out of his sterile existence and do something that gave him a purpose, that gave him meaning when he started dealing drugs. Listen to Walter White's final confession about why he did it.
I did it for me. I liked it. I was good at it. And I was really I was alive.
There's no
That's a
Walter
show
White in the
that
pre-industrial world.
that
Everyone knew their
I
closest friends,
need to
what
watch.
life was
Breaking
for,
Bad.
and what they had to do. So I think the Mouse Utopia experiment
Yeah, that's pretty good.
gainsays Randian materialism. A lot of us are tempted to think if only our material needs were better met, then we'd be happy, then we'd be okay. But what's so striking is that for the rats
Slow burn,
and
though.
the humans in Mouse Utopia is that they
Slow
always
burn.
had enough resources.
Yeah.
They always had enough food and water for everybody. They weren't fighting over resources. They were fighting over their social roles, and that was enough for them to kill their own children. Here's the opening paragraph of Calhoun's experiment. We know vice and misery impose the ultimate natural limit on the growth of populations, but students of the subject have given most of their attention to misery, that is the logistical production of food. But what of vice? Setting aside the moral burden of this word, what are the effects of the social behavior of the species on population growth or eventual collapse? Yeah, because we're also neurotic on the individual level, and that means society is facing those problems on a societal level. And then society gets worse, and we feel it more on an individual level, so we get worse, and we make society worse. I'm sure a lot of you by now have noticed the obvious parallels with the Unabomber's manifesto. Ted Kaczynski warned how industrialization isolates us and turns us into packing peanuts in a package we don't care about. Being able to make YouTube videos like this gives me such autonomy, so I feel like I'm doing something meaningful and something I really care about. This is in contrast to high school, when I was senior class president, and my student council was a complete scam. The teaching advisors would make sure you couldn't do anything except like manual labor. Like I thought I was gonna go in there and change school policy and host events that the students want to see, change homework, but instead, like, the teacher would let us choose between red and green wallpaper for like the left wall at prom, if we were lucky. And so I obviously didn't care about what we were doing. I didn't find it meaningful because I wasn't connected to it, because I wasn't making a difference. I didn't feel like I mattered. I was nothing more than a packing peanut. And that's what so many people are feeling now, and why modern society is dysfunctional. We all feel meaningless, and we try to fill the void with social media, or joining a social movement, or distracting ourselves with drugs or doom scrolling. But that feeling doesn't go away. I spoke about this in my Unabomber video. The Unabomber's fundamental thesis was that humans no longer have to do important things with high stakes, like finding food. So to get any sense of meaning, humans engage in surrogate activities, like playing the guitar, or playing soccer, or building a business. You do something hard that mimics what you would do for survival, so it feels like you're doing something important. In the same way, we can clearly see that the mice in Mice Utopia were doing surrogate activities. Healthy mice in the wild had great social relationships and low stress when they actually had to go hunt for food, because they were doing something real and meaningful. But when all the mice's needs were taken care of, they suddenly had to create surrogate activities like grooming themselves over and over or having pansexual sex with everybody because they felt so aimless, because they felt their lives were purposeless. I hope I don't eat crow on this, but everyone was so worried. No one's gonna watch a real YouTube video again. Everything's gonna be AI generated because they can make such slop with such speed. But that hasn't happened, and people have increasingly decided to watch individual creators with personalities, with opinions of their own that they can't get anywhere else, because we value the real, we value humanity, even though nobody predicted it. In my statistics class in high school, our teacher had us flip a coin 10 times and then write down the results. And then on the other side, make up a sequence. So like heads, tails, heads, make it up. And every time he could tell which one was real and which one was false. Because there's some parts of real experience that we can't just duplicate by making things up. The real world has its own rhythms. The way the teacher was able to tell which side was real and which side was fake was because when people made things up, they would always go back and forth. Heads, tails. Whereas the real world doesn't care. The real world is real. It's not existing for anyone's benefit. So the real coin flips would be much more mixed. Sometimes there would be 8 heads in a row. In the early 2000s, some of the top names in MLB were caught using steroids. Barry Bonds, Alex Rodriguez, Mark McGwire. But do you know what people never mention? Barry Bonds and A-Rod began using steroids in 1998, when they were the 2 most venerated names in baseball. A-Rod began using steroids after his natural talent earned him the largest contract in sports history. Barry Bonds didn't start until after he had already been a 3-time MVP. So they clearly didn't need steroids. They were unbelievable players on their own. It's not like they were minor league players who needed steroids to get into the big leagues. Fundamentally, the surrogate activity of baseball never fully satisfied them. Even after they had achieved greater success than any other players in history, they needed more, just as the mice became more aggressive, more sexual, and more cannibalistic, until they all died. In his commencement address, David Foster Wallace says that all the promises of this world, wealth, pleasure, power, money, will never be enough as far as you chase them. He goes so far as to recommend becoming religious, whatever religion it is, because at least then you'll have a transcendent good that can satisfy you. The Unabomber told us when the industrial world divides us and makes us atomized individuals, no surrogate activity will ever give us the meaning we crave. Believing in God makes you feel like you're part of something greater, just like when you were part of a tribe where survival was on the line. Because as soon as we don't feel like we're part of any big story, anything meaningful, we degenerate. Think about this. When you're trying to meet your survival needs, when you're hunting, when you're gathering, everything you do is for continuing your life. So implicitly, you are saying with your actions that your life is incredibly valuable. I mean, you're spending every waking second fighting for it. When your life is all taken care of, and you don't spend every moment trying to stay alive, you no longer spend all your time asserting to yourself and the world that life is something worth fighting for. And because we're such creatures of habit, as soon as we stop fighting for life, as soon as it's something we take for granted, we no longer view it as valuable. None of the mouse utopia mice would have ever killed their babies when they were in the wild, fighting for survival, fighting to find food. But as soon as all that was taken care of, the value of life became so abstract and intangible that they would kill their own kids because they didn't care about it anymore. It's the most industrial societies that take life the most for granted. Where there are the longest lifespans, there are the highest suicide rates. Marcus Aurelius first recognized this 2,000 years ago. One can live well, even in a palace, which of course implies that it is more difficult to grasp what's important in life when your needs are all taken care of. And I see modern life's absolute monotony and our lack of true individuality everywhere. My friend is starting medical school, and earlier tonight, he wanted to hang out with some of his friends. Someone suggested they go to a bar, and my friend knows how this always goes. Going to a bar is the most standard suggestion that everybody expects, but no one really enjoys it. At least not compared to karaoke. So my friend suggested karaoke, and everybody went. They had a great time, but the original 2 people who suggested going to the bar were so miffed and so confused that their group actually decided to do something, to think for themselves, rather than doing what every 23-year-old med student is doing all the time, that they couldn't even understand it, and they didn't join the rest of the group. We've become such packing peanuts of modern society, we forget we can actually do things. Everyone hangs out in the same way, doing the same things. We don't have distinctions or differences or social roles or individuality. Another great story is my friend was in an a cappella group in college. And in a cappella groups, there's like the social chair and the party chair and the singing chair. And a lot of the older classmates would mentor the younger ones. And at the end of the year, the a cappella group would vote on who would fill each position in the following year. My friend said, hey, all the upperclassmen know the freshmen so well, why don't we let each person decide who's gonna succeed them in their role? And the president of the a cappella group looked at him like he had become a carrot. She was like, what? But every group votes on their successors. As if to say, this is what everybody does. How could you even conceive of doing it differently? And we know the reaction to mice from living in a society like ours. Extreme asexuality or sexuality or worse. But our society has something that even Mouse Utopia wasn't plagued by. They didn't have the internet, where all our most twisted, darkest sexual and non-sexual fantasies can be realized alone.
We live in the most sexually saturated civilization in human history, but somehow everyone is miserable about sex. Adult content is everywhere, mixed in with normal entertainment. Dating apps with hookup promises commodify dating into an algorithmic meat market. But at the same time, public spaces have never been more frigid and sterile. And there's a looming threat of an off-color comment or weird interaction destroying your career. That's the structure of modern life, a weird cognitive dissonance that everyone feels but no one can pin down.
So people are increasingly spending all this time alone with their weird internet fantasies that trains their brain to expect that. So we become the society full of people with their own twisted heads that nobody else knows, and that's the basis of our interactions. And the modern world is practically screaming at us. We are making so many movies expressing how everybody feels this way, this void inside from modern society, like Office Space.
Would you walk us through a typical day for you? Yeah. Great. Well, I generally come in at least 15 minutes late. I use the side door. That way Lumberg can't see me. And after that, I just sort of space out for about an hour. Space out? Yeah. I just stare at my desk. But it looks like I'm working. I do that for probably another hour after lunch, too. I'd say in a given week, I probably only do about 15 minutes of real, actual work. The thing is, Bob, it's not that I'm lazy. It's that I just don't care. Don't care? It's a problem of motivation, all right? Now, if I work my ass off and Initech ships a few extra units, I don't see another dime.
That movie also captures another part of Mouse Utopia, that we're disconnected from the real world. We hold the real world at arm's length. When we had to fight for our survival, we got instant feedback about what we were doing that worked and what we were doing that didn't. We felt like we were playing with real money, with real stakes. Now it feels like we're playing a fake game. People don't say things honestly or take risks. Look at this scene, how the guys in Office Space won't even tell someone they're fired because they want to be as passive as possible, always.
I looked into it more deeply, and I found that apparently what happened is that he was laid off 5 years ago, and no one ever told him about it. But through some kind of glitch in the payroll department, he still gets a paycheck.
So we just went ahead and fixed the glitch.
Great.
So, Milton has been let go. Well, just a second there, Professor. We fixed the glitch. So he won't be receiving a paycheck anymore, so it'll just work itself out naturally.
We always like to avoid confrontation whenever possible. Problem is solved from your end.
You can also see in the background of their sterile gray room that they're planning how to plan. That's what we do now. We plan how to plan, and plan how to plan how to plan, and make sure we never actually do anything, because doing things could be dangerous. And we are so protected that we prefer our souls sapping away than a little danger. That's the story of Gen Alpha, right? We're overprotecting all these kids from any kind of harm, from any kind of challenge, and it's absolutely sapping their minds, stopping them from being real human beings, but we're doing that to ourselves too. Dostoevsky said if we actually did achieve a perfect world, the first thing anyone would do is set something on fire just for something exciting to happen, for something unexpected to happen, something real to happen. And that's the heart of all of this. When everything is taken care for you, you feel like there are no stakes. Like whatever you do, things will be the same, which of course makes you feel powerless, marginalized, and like your life has no purpose. which is in fact what we find with Gen Alpha. Jonathan Haidt has demonstrated that when kids feel like they're overprotected and they're not given any responsibilities, they feel worthless and meaningless, which is incredibly highly correlated with their suicide rates. And he suggests giving kids responsibility to lower the suicide rate. So we should be less afraid to actually do things, even if it's not what everybody else is doing, and we'll feel less depressed ourselves. Because if not, it feels like we're in the Truman Show, where Truman would scream at somebody just to get a real reaction from them. Something genuine, something not pre-planned.
Why don't you let me fix you some of this Numo cocoa drink? All natural cocoa beans from the upper slopes of Mountain Nicaragua, no artificial sweeteners.
What the hell are you talking about? Who are you talking to?
I've tasted other cocos. This is the best.
What the hell does this have to do with anything? Tell me what's happening!
In the Robin Williams movie World's Greatest Dad, Robin Williams' character has been living a lie, pretending that his son was a brilliant author who committed suicide. When he finally comes clean, everybody hates him. So you'd think he'd despair, but in fact, he has this huge thrill. He becomes so excited and runs through the school hallways. Why? Because his words finally have meaning again. He's not living in a cultivated facade, but he's actually interacting with the real world, where he's rewarded and punished based on the things he actually does, so he can have an adventure. He doesn't feel like he's living in the Matrix, where the things he does don't matter. In fact, in the Matrix, Agent Smith explains that the first Matrix was designed to be a perfect human world, where everybody was happy. But it was a disaster. And that instead of a matrix where things endlessly get better, people actually preferred a system of profit and loss, where they could win big or lose it all, and what they did was the difference. What they did mattered. There's a story of a man who drives to the edge of a cliff, ready to jump off. A woman approaches him and asks, why? The man says, isn't it obvious?
This life is awful. It's filled with ugliness and sadness. There's tragedy, there's conflict, there's heartbreak. It's endlessly difficult for no reason. Success is hard, there's no obvious meaning to anything. Even just the little things. The traffic, the cold weather, the Mondays, the way the grocery stores are lit, and the god-awful cashiers that always look at you like they'd be better off if you weren't alive. Well, what life would you not want to jump from? Asks the woman. A life without all that, obviously, says the man. A life filled with only beauty, happiness, love, and peace. A life that's easy and fun all the time. One where there's apparent meaning to stuff and we actually know what's going on and why we're here and what the point is. Says the woman. Everything would be perfect and I would never want to leave that life.
After he explains all that to the woman, she walks up to him and pushes him off. But then he wakes up.
Every person is smiling cheek to cheek as if their faces are pinned in such a position. The man is entirely happy. He has no sense of sadness. Everything is beautiful with no sight of ugliness. The world has no conflict. Everyone loves each other equally. There's no heartbreak, no hardship, no bad days, no traffic, no mean grocery store cashiers. Life is easy and smooth and fun. The meaning of life and the nature of reality is clear, and everyone knows exactly what's going on. It's completely and entirely perfect. A year or so goes by. He gets in his car and drives to Glenwood Canyon. He has come to commit suicide. He's about to jump when a woman's voice from behind him yells, "Hey!" Startled, the man almost falls but catches himself. He turns around to find a woman appearing out of the forest. This woman's presence is not interesting or perplexing to the man. She approaches the man and says hello and asks him what he's doing. "I'm going to jump," says the man. "Why?" asks the woman. "It's a waste being alive, isn't it? There's nothing to do. Everything is easy and boring. I want to feel, but there's nothing to feel," answers the man. "Well, what life would you not want to jump from?" asks the woman. "A life that's interesting and exciting and actually has feeling, obviously," replies the man. "Well, what makes a life that way?" asks the woman. "I don't know. One where some stuff is beautiful, but not everything. Or perhaps everything is beautiful, but at least you don't always notice it, so you can actually appreciate it when you do. A life where you're happy some of the time, but not all the time. And some of the time you actually feel really sad, so you can tell the difference. One where everyone doesn't love each other, and some people aren't really that nice at all, so you can actually feel special about certain people. One where bad stuff happens once in a while. One where things are actually kind of hard, and finding success and meaning requires some thought, effort, and creativity, so it actually feels important when you find it. One where nothing is ever perfect, but some stuff can get really close if you try hard enough. I never want to leave that life. Doesn't it sound wonderful? Asks the man. Yes, says the woman. It does. The man turns around to look at the landscape over the cliff and try to imagine a life like that. The woman leans in and pushes him softly on the back. He falls forward, off the cliff. I hope you see it this time, the woman says to herself.
And just like that, that man discovered Mouse Utopia. He realized that in a perfect world, he wouldn't be really alive. There would be no challenge, there would be no stakes. The things he did wouldn't have consequence. And so there'd be no meaning to what he did. And if there's no meaning to what he did, there's no meaning to his life. And even though he thought a perfect world is what he wanted, he soon learned what that truly meant. My favorite Twilight Zone episode is called A Nice Place to Visit, where a thief is shot by the police and goes to heaven. He's confused how he got into heaven, but he doesn't care, because he gets to gamble every night with beautiful women and a fancy car. After about a month, the man is sick of it all. So he asks his guardian angel if he could start losing some of his poker games, so there would actually be stakes. And the angel replies, "Of course, sir. How often would you like to lose?" The man shakes the angel by the lapels and says, "Don't you understand? I don't want to know how often I'm going to lose. I just want to be able to lose. So when I play well, it means something. And the things I do matter. I'll have to think twice about doing something, because if I do it wrong, I'll be hurt, and if I do it right, I'll be rewarded."
When you win every time, that ain't gambling, that's charity.
Well, I could arrange for you to lose occasion if you'd like. Would that help?
It might. No, it's no good. It ain't the same. I would know.
The man gets so frustrated, he looks at the angel and says, "You know what? Maybe I'd be better off in the other place instead of heaven." And that's when the angel looks at him and says,
Heaven? Whatever gave you the idea you were in heaven, Mr. Valentine? This is the other place.
As atheist George Bernard Shaw put it, hell is a place where you have nothing to do but amuse yourself. In his 1903 play Man and Superman, he says hell is a relief because it removes the burden of hope, duty, and responsibility. That sounds exactly like the three things the man from that short story discovered is what makes life valuable. And what the mice who killed each other in Mouse Utopia never learned. I mean, I'll give them a pass because they're actual rodents, but still. What's often called the greatest indicator of your quality of life is toleration of uncertainty. In life, no matter what you do, you're all in. We don't live in a utopia. We live in a place where what you do matters. And if you do things wrong, you and people around you will get seriously hurt. And if you do things right, you'll benefit. How exciting is that? All the great wisdom traditions, from Buddhism to Christianity to modern neuroscience, extols the virtue of toleration of uncertainty, living in that space between cause and effect, and trying to wrest certainty from an uncertain universe will cause the suffering that you're trying to avoid in the first place. When physicists show that at the quantum level, the universe is fundamentally probabilistic, and when YouTubers don't know what video will do well next, and when Buddha says impermanence is the source of suffering, they're all revealing that uncertainty is so baked into the human condition, to our experience, that one of the most fundamental things we need to do is accept and dance with that. And when mice are fundamentally engaged in that pursuit, when they are actively trying to chase down their next food or find shelter, they know they're engaged in life and all of its uncertainty, and they've accepted that. They're living it. When all their needs are taken care of and they have to invent things to do and they never know how they're going to turn out, and they're playing with fake money. They're not in touch with the uncertainty of the world. They're not at the cutting edge of it. They're playing a fake game. It's all meaningless. They know it's meaningless, and they all kill themselves. Every breakthrough in human history happened because someone moved forward without knowing the outcome. Someone was bragging to me the other day that they know when their next paycheck is coming, as a sort of diss to me being like a YouTuber actor. And that's fine. You can clearly see how much they don't like uncertainty. I feel like that might limit what they do in life, because they might choose the safer path over the one they really care about, but that's up to them. And I know this very well. Throughout my life, a lot of you know I've struggled with OCD, but even outside of that, I'll have particular fixations that I think is the source of my unhappiness. It's because this happened to me when I was a kid, or because I never chased this opportunity that I'm in the state I'm in. But every time that happened, years later, I would realize that something else has filled that space. If I once thought I was unhappy because I didn't grow up rich, maybe now I feel upset that I didn't study piano hard enough. But every time, whatever the rotating fixation is, I'm so gullible so as to think whatever wish is vexing me now is what I'm really concerned about. But I'm really just trying to maintain control when I feel like my life is out of my hands. When I feel like my life is going wrong, I attribute all my failures, all my unhappiness to one concrete and specific issue that I can really grasp. So I can feel like a victim, and I get to feel like the world's understandable. And if only this had been different, then I would get all the things I deserve. Because I, just like so many other people, can't cope with uncertainty. But the better I can, the better my life becomes. And I'm tempted to get those fixations that explain the real reason my life isn't the way I want it to be when I don't feel agency, when I don't feel connected to the people around me. Which is why I also need to tell you about the reverse mouse utopia. For a long time, we've been told addiction is a purely chemical phenomenon. Some of us are susceptible to the dopamine and cocaine, and if we try it, we'll never be able to stop. This idea comes from studies in the early 20th century, where mice would be given plain water and water injected with heroin. The mice would drink the heroin water even when it made them sick, and they would keep drinking it until it killed them. However, some researchers noticed that there was a problem in those studies' methodology. Their environments weren't the real world. So researchers later redid those studies, and the mouse was given family and friends and a wheel to run on, good food, and then was given the choice between regular water or heroin water. 95% of the time, the mouse chose the regular water. In the words of journalist Johan Hari, you go from almost 100% overdoses when they're isolated to 0% overdoses when they have happy and connected lives. And this happened with humans too. By the end of the Vietnam War, 20% of US soldiers were addicted to heroin. The entire country braced for tens of thousands of zombified drug addicts to fill their streets. But miraculously, 95% of those heroin addicts never injected again when they reached the US. And if you believe the chemical story about addiction, well, that makes no sense. Dutch professor Peter Cohen argues we shouldn't even call it an addiction. We should call it bonding. Humans have a need to bond, and when we're healthy, we bond with each other. When we can't do that because we're traumatized or isolated, we'll find something else to bond with, whether that's being the best baseball player, me feeling like I can explain everything wrong with my life, the mice who groom themselves over and over, or the man who would fantasize about life being perfect before he could be happy. We often bond with the stories we tell ourselves that explain why our lives are going wrong. But maybe our lives go wrong because we can't accept the fundamental uncertainty that fills this life. I don't know how many views this is going to get. Probably not very many because it's not about Gen Alpha, but I think it's important to say. So is this video a risk? Yes, but at least it's something real. Because you know what's more dangerous than doing real things? Not doing them. Once you feel like you're playing with house money and that you don't actually have skin in the game, you devolve into mouse utopia. And that's exactly what we're seeing all around us right now. Think about Gen Alpha on the iPads. They're not in the real world. They're doing simulations of Roblox games. They don't have any connection to things that actually matter. When they get in trouble at school, they know they're going to get bailed out. Nothing in life has any contrast. Nothing they do is good, and nothing they do is bad. They're in this gray, homogenized zone that is so distinct from the true nature of the world, they can never hope to actually interact with it. And if I had to demonstrate that to you in two metrics, it would be that since the 1950s, the amount of floor space Americans have has steadily increased as the number of friends they said they can call in an emergency has fallen. We've traded floor space for friends and stuff for connections, resulting in statistically the loneliest society there has ever been. I hope you now see how learning about mouse utopia has so drastically affected how I view society, but it's also changed how I view myself and my own addictions. Comment what you think. I'll respond to as many people as I can. Thanks to our wonderful patrons for making such an ambitious video possible. If you can, please support my mission to make videos like this on Patreon. Link in the description. Thanks to our patrons Bob, Eric, Guy, Matt, Raz, Amalam, Keaton, Nick, Magnus, Tito J, Kendall, Anthony, Lil J, Celia, Sammy, Cool, Scott, Becca, Avery, Gerard, Beth, Pillow, Love, Wendy, Pina2, and our newest patron, Eli. Now I'm gonna go talk with everyone in the comments.
This episode of the Y-Files is brought to you by War Thunder. Hey, thanks for clicking. Today we're doing a whole compilation. Someone mentioned it on the live stream a couple of weeks ago, that we've done so many stories about...
I'm about to show you the most terrifying experiment ever completed. Some people are arguing AI will be the most transformative technology in human history.
Artificial intelligence will be the most transformational technology in the history of the world.
What is certain is that people are losing jobs, becoming depressed, more lonely, more isolated, and we're increasingly feeling like burdens on people around us, and that we lead meaningless lives. Leading intellectuals like Yuval Harari call half the human population useless eaters.
The biggest question maybe in economics and politics of the coming decades will be what to do with all these useless people. They are basically meaningless, worthless.
And our politics have gotten more extreme as the problems politics tries to address become more extreme. A few technocrats are getting increasing control over our minds as we relinquish more and more of our daily experience to algorithms. People aren't having kids or getting married, and people have fewer friends than in more than 200 years. Nobody can afford a house, people aren't going to college, people are just despairing at the state of modern culture. Nobody thinks the status quo is going well. But one man tried to warn us that all this would happen more than 30 years ago. His name was Ted Kaczynski, the Unabomber. When Ted was 9 months old, he was hospitalized with a severe allergic reaction. But because hospitals prioritized industrial efficiency over caring for patients, Ted was separated from his parents as a newborn baby and isolated for 7 days. The way his mom described it, in those days, the way they treated children was barbaric. Ted's mom said when she came to pick him up, he didn't look at her. He didn't respond in any way. It frightened the hell out of me. It was really a very painful episode in our lives. Nonetheless, Ted was a world-class intellect. His IQ was on par with Stephen Hawking and Albert Einstein. He went to Harvard at 16, but that's when his story took a dark turn. 2 million Americans fought in the Korean War against the Soviet Union and China, or more broadly, against communism. The American government was horrified that when 21 American soldiers were captured by the Chinese, they were re-educated in communist political theory and defected against the United States. One black GI named Clarence Adams was used by the Chinese to tell black American soldiers in the Vietnam War to go home, asking, "Why are you fighting for the freedom of the Vietnamese if you aren't even free as black men in the United States?" The CIA concluded that the Chinese and the Soviets must have been using some kind of mind control on Americans to turn them communist. So in response, the CIA launched the infamous MK Ultra program, where they unconsensually drugged Americans with LSD and heroin, gave them electrical shocks, placed them in sensory deprivation, raped, sexually assaulted, and tortured them.
He received 54 high voltage shock treatments, followed by 54 grand mal seizures. He also was put in an insulin coma for 36 days with a recording beside him saying that your mother hates you.
One of their subjects? Harvard student Ted Kaczynski. Ted would never talk about what he went through, but his friends reported he became increasingly paranoid and resentful of the US government and everyone around him. Nonetheless, Ted became a professor of mathematics at UC Berkeley before dropping out to live completely off the grid in a cabin in Montana in 1971.
I had it all. A shack.
I forgot
a
to take my
bucket.
meds.
That was pretty much it.
He began to view all industrial society
Ah,
as
that's
so
why
harsh
I'm
and evil,
not
not just for what it
fucking
did to him,
sleeping.
but what it was doing to everyone around him. He saw his fellow academics become pathetic, hollow shells with no soul. It was as if they lived to serve American academia and not the other way around. Their entire lives revolved around cranking out these research papers that had no practical effect, that they weren't even interested in. And Ted watched them live their lives in service of this goal. They would decide when they were going to go to sleep, they would decide who they would hang out with based on their academic schedule the next day, based on making sure they can write enough papers. Their entire lives were in service of this industrial machine. So Ted lived Ralph Waldo Emerson style for 7 years. But then, his worst nightmare came true. His remote cabin, that was supposed to be far from industrial society and its assembly line dystopia, was soon encircled by bulldozers. They started cutting down trees, paving roads, and laying down an electrical grid in the very spot Ted chose because it was isolated from society. In his own words, "You just can't imagine how upset I was. It was from that point on, I decided that rather than trying to acquire further wilderness skills, I would work on getting back at the system. Revenge." He wrote that for several months now, I've had a desire for death. Montana is being industrialized, and while I could look for wilder places, there is nowhere I could feel safe from civilization. There's no place airplanes don't fly. Worse than that, even if I lived in the very wildest spot in North America, it would gall me to know that my very life depends on the decision made by the cocksuckers in Washington, Moscow, and Peking. In case of atomic war, there's no place I could be sure of avoiding radiation. It is not the danger to my life that upsets me. I wouldn't mind dying from a tick-borne illness in nature. But to die from radiation or some other form of civilized pollution would be a humiliation. It would gall me to be the helpless victim of the cocksuckers who are pushing all this technology crap. After seeing technology colonize my beloved Montana woods, I had lost all hope of living isolated from society. There was only one thing that made me determined to stay alive: the desire for revenge. I want to kill people, preferably a scientist and a businessman. First, he tried sabotaging all the industrial developments near his cabin, but then Ted realized he was only cutting off leaves. He needed to uproot the entire tree trunk. So Ted targeted universities and airlines, which for him were the two central organs to the entire industrial body. Hence his name, the University and Airline Bomber. The Unabomber. Ted became a modern Jack the Ripper. No one knew who he was, no one knew where the bombs were coming from. One reporter said, "Nobody knows who he is. It's creepy. There's a tremendous sense of public fear." One survivor said, "Basically, you're dealing with a ghost." In the 80s and 90s, every time a package arrived at a university from an unknown sender, people were terrified. So why was Ted doing this? Well, he was trying to save society from what it's now become. Ted wrote a manifesto explaining that the Industrial Revolution and its consequences have been a disaster for the human race. It has made life unfulfilling. He therefore advocated a violent revolution against society, and he killed 3 people and injured dozens of others so people would read his manifesto. In his words, "If I had never done anything violent, I would not have attracted many readers. In order to get my message before the public with some chance of leaving a lasting impression, I had to kill people." After being on the lam for almost 20 years, he sent his manifesto to the New York Times. The FBI told the New York Times to publish it, hoping that someone who knows the Unabomber would recognize his handwriting and help find him. And do you know how he was finally caught? We've established that Ted's a genius, and so he always spoke with utter precision. But that would be his undoing. Ted would constantly annoy everyone in his life when they said the phrase, "You can't have your cake and eat it too," because he would correct them and say the phrase is supposed to be, "You can't eat your cake and have it too." So in the manifesto, when he acknowledges replacing modern society with primitive society will have drawbacks, he reminds the reader that sacrifice is necessary. You can't eat your cake and have it too. And despite that being the correct way to say the phrase, it's become so uncommon that when his brother read that line in the manifesto, he instantly recognized that it was Ted. And so Ted Kaczynski's grammar Nazism led to his arrest at his cabin in the woods. His attorneys begged him to plead insanity to get a lighter sentence. But Ted refused because he would not discredit his writings as
What's
the
up?
ravings of a madman.
Ted Kaczynski got caught because he was a grammar Nazi.
3 years ago. Ted's fundamental
The
thesis is that
Unabomber.
before modern industry, people were constantly
funny.
engaged in meaningful connection and activity. Small tribes would hunt together and eat together and raise children together. You were never bored, you were never lonely, you were never depressed. And statistics bear this out. Almost all our psychological ailments today are completely foreign to primitive societies, where there is extremely little depression or anorexia or bipolar disorder or OCD. Ted argued that people need a sense of autonomy. They need to feel like they're in charge of their life. And in modern industrial society, people aren't in charge of their life, people serve the system. The system is in charge of your life. You go to work, and your boss tells you what to do, and he's told what to do by his boss, and his boss is told what to do by shareholders. So people don't feel useful. People don't feel like their life has meaning. They feel like it wouldn't matter if they lived or died. I'm doing stand-up, and I met this comedian. He's about my age, and he looked at me and said, "Casey, like, I'm not suicidal, but I just know I don't think it would matter if I died. I'm not actively trying to kill myself, but I wouldn't really care if I did." And what's so scary about that sentiment is I can look in people's eyes and I know that a lot of people feel that way. And that idea would have been completely foreign to a pre-industrial peasant, compared to the autonomy we had when our whole lives were hunting and gathering ourselves for our own food. Or, say in medieval Europe, you might work as a merchant or a farmer, but it would be with your family and you would be in charge of your own small business. Ted divides all human activity into 2 categories. The first are things we get really easily. He says in the past, food was hard to get, so when you got food, you really valued it, and you felt a sense of accomplishment. Today, for everyone in the advanced world, food is extremely accessible, so it doesn't provide any meaning. The second kind of activity are things that are hard but attainable. He says this used to be gathering food and shelter, but now, because we get food and shelter so easily, we have to engage in surrogate activities to give us some kind of challenge, some kind of meaning in our hollow lives. This could be trying to climb the corporate ladder, trying to cure cancer, or trying to write a musical. He says these things can be fulfilling, but they're not as fulfilling as things related to our survival, and Ted got this message out through his terror campaign. His manifesto has been read by millions of people. It even inspired Luigi Mangione to kill Brian Thompson. But what's fascinating is Kaczynski's writings doesn't really align with any side of the political spectrum, because he just wanted to overthrow all of society. Think about it. The entire right-left divide is completely a response to how we deal with the problems of industrialization. Where do the terms left and right-wing come from? They come from the two sides of the French Assembly. The left-wingers were in favor of the French Revolution, and the right-wingers were against it. And where does the French Revolution come from? Industrialization! France was by far the most advanced society in the world in terms of population and culture in 1789 because of industrialization. So they were the first to be able to have a revolution, and the left and right wing were formed in whether they should or not, how they should deal with industrialization. To this day, our entire left-right spectrum is how we should deal with the problems of industrialization. Kaczynski criticizes conservatives because he says, oh, the conservatives want to go back to the way society used to be. But they are fools. They don't realize you can't enact huge industrializing changes that don't also change the way people live and people's values. The real solution is to just end industry. But he also criticizes leftists. He says leftists are over-socialized by industrial society. What does that mean? It means industrial society has so many particular unspoken rules. The way we're supposed to talk, the way we're not supposed to hate other people, the way we're supposed to not be violent, the way we need to restrain our sexual impulses. And the leftist has imbibed all these rules so particularly that they have a sense of guilt whenever they break them. And because we all break society's rules to some degree, we break traffic laws, we goof off at work, we hate someone, we say spiteful things, the over-socialized person generates a sense of shame and self-hatred for the ways they do not measure up. I sense this very strongly. For a long time, I had really bad OCD, so I was constantly analyzing what I was doing wrong. And Kaczynski's right that this can only happen in an industrial society that has rules for every single way we possibly interact with each other. But Kaczynski's more striking critique of leftists is because they've been so beat down by industrialization, they feel like losers. And they fight against competition in the free market because they don't have what it takes to succeed. Therefore, they identify with the people society has left behind. Minorities, women, people with disabilities. Because they're really fighting against a system that they feel has forgotten them. He argues that feminists who are desperately anxious to prove that women are as strong and as capable as men reveal that they are really nagged by a deep insecurity that women may not be as strong and as capable as men. That's why they have to assert it so dogmatically and are so threatened when it's questioned. He argues the modern leftist does not really want to help the minority they speak on behalf of. The example he gives is if you believe affirmative action is good for black people, then it would make sense to argue for it in very calm ways, giving symbolic concessions to your opponents so no one feels antagonized by you and no one feels threatened by your proposal, so you can quietly enact the policy that you think will be helpful to minorities without causing a huge political debate. So Kaczynski says when leftists advocate in such dogmatic and uncompromising ways, it isolates so many people who might otherwise be on their side, and therefore they're not able to achieve nearly as many policy goals as they would be able to if they took a much more conciliatory tone. Kaczynski argues this proves the real goal of the leftist is to express their own frustrated need for power that industrialization has crushed. Kaczynski argues the real problem for everybody, of all political persuasions, is that humans have a need for the power process. They want to feel in charge of their lives and that they're moving towards a meaningful goal. When that's crushed, we take up surrogate goals, like joining a political movement, so we can feel powerful in some indirect capacity, since we don't feel powerful about ourselves in our own lives. This is why it was increasingly the most isolated, lonely, and powerless young German citizens in the 1930s who joined the Nazi Party. They needed some way to feel like they mattered. If you asked some like merchant in the year 12, or some hunter-gatherer in the year 2000 BC, well, they would probably have so much meaning in their lives if you tried to get them to join a political movement. If you first explained to them what a political movement was, maybe they'd join if they think it's a good cause, but they wouldn't feel the need to out of a need for meaning. Kaczynski asks the reader to consider the hypothetical case of a man who can get anything by wishing for it. At first, he'll have a lot of fun, but soon he'll become bored and demoralized. Eventually, clinically depressed. History demonstrates that leisured aristocracies become decadent, but fighting aristocracies that have to struggle to maintain themselves do not. That's why the only countries with above replacement birth rates are in the third world or constantly at war with their neighbors. Kaczynski points to the example of Japanese Emperor Hirohito. Hirohito had everything he could possibly want in life, so he had no challenge. So he needed a surrogate activity to keep him occupied, to keep him engaged. This is why Hirohito became a distinguished marine biologist, who actually named several new species of hydrozoa. A contemporary example would be how Bill Gates' daughter, despite not having any monetary need, just completed medical school. In industrial societies, because we don't have to struggle to achieve our biological necessities, we create artificial goals that we can struggle for, like marine biology, or creating art, or doing math. But the proof Kaczynski gives that the surrogate activities are less satisfying than the pursuit of real goals is that in industrial societies, we're never satisfied. The moneymaker constantly strives for more and more wealth. The scientist no sooner solves one problem than he moves on to the next. The long-distance runner always drives himself to run faster. Whereas in pre-industrial societies, once you'd completed your task, you were satisfied. That's why pre-industrial societies had so much more leisure time than we do today. Kaczynski says that even though modern man is more physically secure than primitive man, he feels less secure. Primitive man may be threatened by a fierce animal or hunger, but these fears go away when he gains shelter or food. By contrast, modern man has to perennially worry about nuclear accidents or carcinogens in their food or environmental pollution or getting cancer or war or increasing taxes or recession. And then Ted has a whole case study on scientists. He acknowledges that some people may go,
Ted, you're wrong. Some scientists are really just motivated by a deep curiosity, not a power process.
But Ted doesn't buy that for a second. He says most scientists work on highly specialized problems that are not the object of any normal curiosity. For example, is an astronomer, a mathematician, or an entomologist curious about the properties of isopropyl trimethylmethane? Of course not. Only a chemist is curious about such a thing, and he is curious about it only because chemistry is his surrogate activity. Is the chemist curious about the appropriate classification of a new species of beetle? No, that question is of interest only to the entomologist, and he is interested in it only because entomology is his surrogate activity. If the chemist and the entomologist had to exert themselves seriously to obtain the physical necessities of life, or if they had some other interesting way to use their abilities in a non-scientific pursuit, they wouldn't give a damn about isopropyl trimethylmethane or the classification of beetles. Suppose the chemist had become an insurance broker instead. In that case, he would have been very interested in insurance matters, but would not have cared about isopropyl trimethylmethane. Why does he keep mentioning this insane word? I can barely say it. He writes, in any case, it is not normal to put the amount of time and effort that scientists put into their work on the grounds of mere curiosity. The curiosity explanation for the scientist's motive just doesn't stand up. He says because the industrial system is always trying to crush the human spirit, this is why we have so many people dropping out of society to become cultists or anarchist rebels or gang members. He again criticizes conservatives who argue for local autonomy because he says we can't have local systems in the year 1995, let alone 2026, because we're so interdependent on national infrastructure like media or highways or the internet. A chemical spill at a creek in Minnesota could affect the drinking water of the residents of Greenville. And Ted also says that society views people as sick if they don't fit into this current system. Right? Homosexuality would have been very outside the bounds of mainstream society in the 1950s, and so it was classified as a disease. And today, gay people are much more integrated into society, and now the BDSM doesn't consider them as sick, because they no longer upset the interests of the societal machine. Oh, this part is lethal. He says, imagine a society that subjects people to conditions that make them terribly unhappy, then gives them drugs to take away their unhappiness. It is well known that clinical depression has greatly increased in recent decades. I believe this is because the power process has been disrupted. But even if I'm wrong, the increasing rate of depression has to be the result of some part of modern society, and instead of removing the condition that makes people depressed, modern society gives them antidepressant drugs. Antidepressants are a way to make an individual tolerate social conditions he would normally not tolerate. But some of Ted's most prescient writing is his prediction on AI. He says computer scientists will develop intelligent machines that can do all things better than human beings can. And soon, humans will be at the mercy of algorithms and machines. Kaczynski says some people think humans would never be foolish enough to hand over all their power to machines. Well, I think we can see that was wrong. But nonetheless, Ted responds by saying, I'm not suggesting that the human race would voluntarily turn power over to the machines, but that humans might easily permit themselves to drift into a position of dependence on machines. They would eventually have no choice but to accept all the machine's decisions as society and the problems that it faces becomes more and more complex and the machines become more and more intelligent. People will let machines make more and more of their decisions for them simply because machine-made decisions will bring better results than man-made ones. Eventually, a stage may be reached at which the decisions necessary to keep the system running will be so complex that human beings will be incapable of making them intelligently. As soon as you reach that stage, the machines are in control. People won't be able to just turn the machines off because they will become so dependent on them that turning off the machines will amount to suicide. Is this not like everything I warn about in these Gen Alpha and AI videos? That we are letting these machines take over willingly because we're deciding it's better for machines to be in control than for us to have to inconveniently think for 15 seconds? Okay, so that's the manifesto. Now here's the big question. Was he right? No! He was of course extremely prescient about man's alienation from society because we'll increasingly feel like such insignificant parts of it. But Kaczynski killed people. And once you do that, I'm hopping off your train. Kaczynski has become so famous, we should also remember his victims. Hugh Scruton, Thomas Mosser, and Gilbert Murray. But the more fundamental problem with the Unabomber is he's appointed himself Lord of the Universe. He never checked in to ask if most people would rather live in industrial society. He's decided what's right for everybody. He could have just continued to live remotely in the woods. Only 3% of the United States has actually been developed, so there's plenty of forestry for him to brood in. But Kaczynski said it explicitly. He wanted revenge. And Ted, I'm sorry you were tortured by MK Ultra and taken away from your family when you were a baby, but that doesn't mean you get to destroy the society that the whole world has built. And insofar as you value happiness reports, it's clear that industrial societies rank far, far happier than countries where children have to worry about their survival every day. Kaczynski's writings remind me a lot of Eric Harris's, the mastermind behind the Columbine school shooting. Harris talks frequently about how terrible modern society is. He says, "Give the earth back to the animals. They deserve it infinitely more than we do." And he had his own perverse desire to go away from society towards what is pre-industrial. He used this appeal to naturalism to justify pseudoscience, like black people and poor white people being inferior. And he was a big admirer of Adolf Hitler. He wrote that Hitler came up with a final solution to the Jewish problem, but I came up with the final solution to the human problem. Kill mankind, before shooting 30 of his classmates on Hitler's birthday in 1999. Some of Eric's quotes are eerily like Kaczynski's. Eric argues that human nature has been smothered out by society, jobs, work, and school, that instincts are suffocated behind laws, that people waste their minds with surrogate activities like memorizing the stats of college basketball players, or how many words should be in a book report when there are more important things that really matter. Hollywood is full of disgraceful TV shows where celebrities only care about fame and politics. Harris's writing clearly demonstrates that he doesn't think inherently humanity is bad, but the way humanity is now deserves to perish. He denounces society's way of turning all the young people into good little robots and factory workers. He literally sounds like Tyler Durden.
We are consumers. We are byproducts of a lifestyle obsession. Murder, crime, poverty, these things don't concern me. What concerns me are celebrity magazines, television with 500 channels, some guy's name on my underwear.
He says one thing that separates us from animals is that we can think, so why don't we? People go on day by day doing routine shit, and he says that he is too self-aware to be an unthinking member of society. And who is society to tell him what is right and what is wrong? He makes morality himself, which is exactly what the Unabomber did. But here's the $1 million line from the Columbine Manifesto. He writes, "I will sooner die than betray my own thoughts. I will kill whoever I deem unfit for anything at all, especially life. And if you pissed me off in the past, you will die if I see you." And what happened with Kaczynski? Well, Kaczynski felt he was personally wronged by the US government when they built a road in his neighborhood, so he decided to take revenge on innocent university administrators. Ted Kaczynski obviously has a much better rap than the Columbine killers because he's so much more intelligent and sophisticated, but I don't see two different ideologies. I see Ted Kaczynski and Eric Harris having the same resentful grandiosity. Just like Hitler, they wanted to restore society to some forgotten idyllic past. Is Kaczynski spot on with some of his critiques? Absolutely. But that doesn't tell you anything about his morality or prescriptions. For example, before the Holocaust, Germany was arguably the most advanced and sophisticated society in the world. It had produced Wagner and Nietzsche and Goethe and Hegel, and it had the highest rates of intermarriage between Jews and non-Jews of any European country. 25%. Nazi officials were highly educated and played Beethoven in the death chambers. Intelligence is far from wisdom or morality. Oftentimes, intelligence is merely the handmaiden of our passions. And this is revealed to be undeniably true for the Unabomber as well as for the Columbine kids because of this journal entry. Ted wrote, "My motive for doing what I am going to do is simply personal revenge. I do not expect to accomplish anything by it." And also what he writes here reveals how much he was personally suffering, and his manifesto tries to make it seem like he's just concerned about the future of the United States. But you tell me if this sounds like that. At the age of 36 years, I have never been in bed with a woman, have never had any kind of love affair, and have kissed only 2 women. This in spite of the fact that I have always desired women very strongly. I desired sexual love. Only when I was living my solitary life in the mountains was I free from the craving for women. But my craving for women was never as bad as it is now. Like, poor guy, you know, he should have just gone on like OkCupid, not killed anybody. Both Eric Harris and Ted Kaczynski tried to come across as these objective arbiters of human existence. Kaczynski does it more convincingly, but at bottom, they were both making very irrational, emotional, anger-filled decisions. My last point on this is the Unabomber had a lot in common with the writings of Jean-Jacques Rousseau. Rousseau argued that culture and arts and science, it makes us soft. That Athens was so much more cultivated than Sparta, but Sparta was able to destroy them. Asia was so much more cultivated than Persia, but Persia was able to invade them no problem, because Persians and Spartans focused on virtue and discipline, and patriotism and practicality. But Athens and Asia got lost in philosophy and art and the humanities. They stopped acting virtuous the moment they started to study it. It's the old Marcus Aurelius line, waste no more time arguing what a good man is, be one. But Rousseau also praised Socrates and civic virtue that came from societies with at least some level of cultural sophistication, and he approvingly quoted Montaigne. So I think the strand of justifiable critique that comes from Rousseau and Kaczynski and Harris is our misuse of industrial society, that we have been given this enormous responsibility and we have completely butchered it. Our arts are second rate, or they give us poor messages about how to lead our lives. We've allowed industrial society to isolate us from ourselves, but it doesn't have to be this way. There are industrial societies that are very different from each other. 1950s America versus modern-day Israel, or 1980s Iran. Kaczynski even reveals this in his own manifesto. He praises American frontier society because he argues even though they have some industrialization and all the widespread challenges that he was warning about, they still had agency and they were connected to each other. So that proves that we can have an industrialized society that's good without burning the whole system down. I wonder if Kaczynski's emotionality clouded his judgment, that his own writings demonstrated you don't need to kill everybody to have a better society. You can have a good industrial society. But something extremely illustrative about how there is such a validity at the core of the Unabomber's broad critiques is that the societies today that are the most demoralized, that are pushing crazy ideas like degrowth, which means they actually want to have a recession or a depression on purpose, or the societies with the fewest birth rates and the most suicides are the ones that have been industrialized the longest, which supports Kaczynski's thesis that industrialization is like a disease. We see the patients who are sickest dying first. But it doesn't have to be this way. For example, there have been periods where birth rates have gone up and suicide rates have gone down, and there have been some primitive societies that have been filled with murder, and even sometimes with suicide. Also, in an industrial society, you can choose to go live like Chris McCandless in the woods. But in a primitive society, you cannot decide to go live in civilization. I think a better critique than industrialization writ large would be industrial aimlessness and purposelessness. Have you ever noticed that communism and fascism and Nazism and Francoism and FDR's New Deal, they all started at the same time? Well, that's because in the 1930s, everyone lost their jobs, so everyone was looking for a new way to find meaning, because meaning is so important to each of us. That's why so much of society completely changed in the 30s. Hitler and FDR, the two most transformative leaders in their countries' respective histories, literally came to power 34 days apart. So I worry that when we have the next crash, the next strain on the system, whether it's economic or from AI, I worry we're going to have a whole new set of revolutionary ideas. Maybe some of them inspired by Kaczynski. Maybe they're left-wing, maybe they're far-right. But I think there's a lot of unrest right now, and the next opportunity for social change will not be pretty. So when people praise Kaczynski, be wary. I know they're making Aura Farm edits about him on TikTok.
The Industrial Revolution and its consequences have been a disaster for the human race.
Because now you know the truth. What do you think about him? I'll respond to as many comments as I can. Thanks to our patrons Bob, Eric, Guy, Matt, Raz, Amalam, Keaton, Nick, Magnus, Tito, J, Kendall, Anthony, Little Jace, Aaliyah, Sammy, Cool, Scott, Rebecca, Avery, Gerard, Elizabeth, and welcome to our newest patron, the Chosen One. Sounds ominous.
He was literally 2 days away from dying. So this is a story where a 15-year-old boy was diagnosed with blood cancer, but he developed a flesh-eating infection in his lung. He wasn't going to make it. So he has one request. He wants to go outside. And that's exactly what they do. And this was actually mind-blowing to me. After the second day, the infection is probably 60-70% gone. And it became clear to me that sunlight has so many important benefits. For instance, if you're the bed closer to the window, you get discharged from the hospital faster.
So I want you to give me any information you have as it relates to light health. For example, do you recommend these kinds of things?
Dr. Roger Seaholt is a board-certified critical care physician who breaks down complex science into clear, life-saving advice.
I see people at the very end of their lives, so I know what prevents them from getting this ill and how to extend life. So let's distill it down into 8 pillars. The first thing, exercise. It reduces stroke. It reduces depression. Next, sunlight. Did you know that infrared light from the sun is able to penetrate up to about 8 millimeters and stimulate and upregulate melatonin, which prevent a lot of diseases like dementia, cardiovascular disease, diabetes.
What if you live in a cloudy country?
There's some very actionable things that you can do, and we'll talk about that. Next one, water. For instance, people who use sauna are more likely to have less death from cardiovascular disease. Next, air. There are studies that show that just going out 1 day a week can elevate our immune system and make us more relaxed. And then there's But finally, trust. This is something that can't be ignored because studies have shown that people who have a good faith and trust in God are...
I see messages all the time in the comment section that some of you didn't realize you didn't subscribe. So if you could do me a favor and double check if you're a subscriber to this channel, that would be tremendously appreciated. It's the simple, it's the free thing that anybody that watches the show frequently can do to help us here, to keep everything going in this show, in the trajectory it's on. So please do double check if you subscribed. And thank you so much, because in a strange way, you're part of our history and you're on this journey with us. And I appreciate you for that. So yeah, thank you. Dr. Roger Schwalt, with the work that you do, what is it that you're aiming to accomplish?
Outside of my clinical duties, and maybe even part of that, I would like to clearly explain very easily graspable tools that can be implemented to make people live their best life, and specifically in terms of their health and their well-being.
And as we dig down into health and well-being, because that's quite a broad basket, what is it within health and well-being that you've spent your career, your life focusing on?
So I'm a board-certified internal medicine specialist. Then I did an extra 3 years of training here in the United States on pulmonary and critical care. So I deal with all of the issues that are related to the lungs and the critical care aspect. So if you are admitted to hospital and you're critically ill, you go to the intensive care unit, I'm the doctor that you see. So I'm putting in the lines, putting on vasopressors, intubating them. I worked in the clinic this morning.
And what are some of the unappreciated things that most people don't think of? Because we think of, don't eat processed food and exercise. But is there things outside of that that you don't think the average person appreciates enough?
Yes, absolutely.
What are those things?
So if we look at those things that extend life and are beneficial, we could put them into what I call 8 pillars of health. If you can imagine your life is a chain with a bunch of links, Okay? And I'm talking medically. Each one of those links is an organ system. So your heart is a link. Your lungs are a link. Your liver is a link. Your kidneys, etc., etc. As you go through life, imagine those links starting to erode. So that at some point in your life, you're going to get some sort of a disease or a diagnosis that focuses on one organ system of your life. For many here in the United States and in the UK, it's the heart. And as that link gets more eroded, we can see very clearly that this is going to be the link that's going to break first. And therefore, attention is paid to that link. For many, that diagnosis comes with medications. So here's one of the first truisms that I would say going forward. All medications have side effects. And what the aim is to do in modern medicine is to utilize the knowledge of those medicines and their effect on the human body so that we leverage the other links to protect that weakest link. So I can go through a bunch of medications that I give all the time to patients in the intensive care unit where I'm focused on saving their life because I can clearly see which link is the weakest. But I'm doing it knowing that there's side effects because I'm trying to save that link, to save that life. And I'm leveraging those other things. For instance, somebody comes in with a stroke and they've lost weakness on the right side of their body or on the left side, whichever side. I can give them a medication immediately that will break up all of the clots in their body. It's called TPA or TNK. And it will restore blood flow to the brain, and it will reverse many of their symptoms. If they come in soon enough, we can do this. What's amazing is that that medication has an effect that can do that, but it also has a pretty significant side effect in that it could break up clots somewhere else and cause bleeding. So we have to be careful about what it is that we're doing. Clearly there, what we're doing is we're saving one link at the expense of other links, but that's what you have to do in an emergency situation. But if after that, I simply send that patient home without telling them why they had that stroke and what they need to do to prevent themselves from getting that stroke again, and what are the lifestyle factors that cause that to happen, I haven't done my job. So what are the interventions that we can do, hopefully early on in life, so that we don't have those links eroding, so that all of the links are strong, and as we get older, we can continue to strengthen all of the links. Here are the 8. So nutrition, that's nutrition. Basically, we know there are studies that have done that show that depending on what we put into our bodies as food can have a dramatic impact in terms of our well-being. Okay, so that's nutrition. Exercise. As I was saying, exercise drugs and things have side effects. Exercise has side benefits. So exercise obviously is going to make you more fit. It's going to make you have better endurance. But did you know that it reduces stroke? Did you know that it improves well-being? It reduces depression. There's so many benefits. So all of these links are actually improving. There's no leveraging here. Exercise is incredible. Water. So this may sound obvious, right? Like you drink because you're thirsty. Where I would like to go today is to talk a little bit about what the effect of water externally on your body can do.
And you're talking there about like hot and cold usage.
Exactly.
In terms of showers or cold plunges, saunas, that kind of thing?
Exactly.
Okay.
And we'll get into the actual evidence for this.
We'll get into it later, but what is
this affects your immune system?
Which changes your probability of diseases and
Correct.
stuff like that?
Absolutely. Especially in the acute setting. Especially. So not only in the acute setting, but we also have pretty good data from Finland where they have more saunas than people, where they've actually done the research and shown with dose response curves that this is actually very beneficial. We won't get into too much of that, but what I want to focus a little bit more on because of my job in the intensive care unit and what we're seeing right now with viruses and mutations in the innate immune system, why something like this may actually be very important as we look forward. Interestingly, as we look forward to future things, pandemics, we can look backward and see what we had done in the past. And we've got some really good information on that. Let's go to sunlight. This is something that I've really become more and more involved with because of some of the benefits that this can do. A very big misconception that people have is that sunlight equals vitamin D. And therefore, if you take a vitamin D supplement, you don't need to go in the sun. This is really something that's now being debunked. Sunlight has far more benefits than just vitamin D. Not saying that vitamin D is not something that you want to supplement with. I supplement with vitamin D. I think there's a benefit to supplementing with vitamin D, no question. But sunlight has so many important things, and I really would like to spend the bulk or the lion's share of the time talking about this because this is really important. This is amazing, and it really made me think about sunlight. So this is a story by a lady by the name of Amy Honmeyer. Her 15-year-old boy was diagnosed with lymphoblastic leukemia, went into the hospital, actually started chemotherapy for it.
Which is blood cancer.
It's a blood cancer, yeah. And so the treatment for blood cancer is chemotherapy, which he started. The side effect of chemotherapy is suppressing the immune system. And unfortunately, he didn't realize it, but he didn't realize it immediately, but he developed a fungus flesh-eating infection in his lung and went into the hospital in June of 2024. This is in Minnesota, tertiary care hospital. And he got worse and got worse and got worse to the point where the only way that they could control this infection was to actually remove his left lung, which they did. So this is a 15-year-old boy. He is without his left lung. He only has a right lung. And he starts to decline even after that. They do a CT scan, and it shows that now the infection has moved to his remaining right lung. They have a family conference. And as Amy is telling me this story, I could hear her choking up. She's telling me this on the phone. She's saying that he's 15, he's completely awake, he's completely alert, he knows everything that's going on around him. He's on a ventilator, like a machine that they use for sleep apnea. It's like a BiPAP machine that's breathing for him. It's not intubation, but it's on his mouth. And the doctors, have done everything they possibly can, and they say, look, he's getting worse. We can't take the right lung out. We can't put him on a heart-lung machine because there's no sort of destination to where he's going. We recommend not intubating him and making what they call DNR, do not resuscitate. So they're like, wow, they were not expecting this coming. So they have a big conference. Somebody they call in help to, like, how do you explain to a 15-year-old boy that you're dying? And how's that going to feel? So they ask the doctors, how much time does he have? They say 2 days. So in this situation, they ask this boy, okay, you're going to die. What do you want to do with your life in the next 2 days? What do you want to do? And surprisingly, he says, I want to go outside. I just want to go outside. This guy grew up probably on a farm or something, and he spent his time outside. So he wants to go outside. So you know how, I mean, I don't know if you know this, but like if you're a nurse or you're a doctor and you've done everything you can and you're just completely horrified at the fact that this 15-year-old is going to die, and he has one request. You're going to move heaven and earth to fulfill that one request. And that's exactly what they do. They get this boy the hospital bed outside. He's on a BiPAP machine the respiratory therapists have put together. So this guy is outside. And they're not putting him outside to get better. This is his dying wish. They also use this thing called a Firefly. It's like a light device that they were using. I'll be honest, I don't know which did it.
The Firefly, what's that?
It's a light device that gives off light at different wavelengths. And they would use that for about 3 times a day for 5 minutes. This guy does not die. After the first day, his white count starts to come down. That's like a measure of the infection that's going on in the lung. And by the way, they do a CT scan of his lung before this all starts. And it's just the remaining lung on the right is just filled with infection. It's horrible. By the second day, the white count comes down even more.
Alright,
by the way,
I'm gonna get off after this last
he's been in for 6
boss.
weeks. He has not seen the light of day.
Right.
And he's still getting the powerful antifungal medication, amphotericin B and posaconazole. All of these things are really high-powered drugs that just completely fight fungus, but it's not working. He's getting worse. But now he's out for the second day. The white count's coming down, which is good. It's a good sign. His oxygen requirement is coming down. That's a good sign. He's requiring less and less oxygen. By the time he gets to day 5, okay, we're already past 2 days. He's off the BiPAP. He's on regular just nasal cannula oxygen that you see people wearing on their nose. The doctors are scratching their head. They're like, we should get a CT scan to see what's going on. So Amy tells me that they get a CT scan of this guy, and they're in the room, and some even like swear under their breath, like they're completely amazed. Because on the CT scan, obviously the left lung is still gone, but the right lung, the disease is probably 60, 70% gone. And he's still alive. He goes home. There's no sign of the disease after treatment. And she just communicated with me to tell me that he just got his Make-A-Wish thing for his cancer. He's continuing treatment. And she just can't believe that he was literally 2 days away from dying. They changed nothing. They changed none of his treatments. The only thing that they did was they took him outside, and they were using this Firefly before inside, but they were using it more consistently when he got outside.
Maybe hospitals should be outside.
This is exactly what... Okay, so if you wanted to know what my drive was, what it is, my purpose that I'm doing right now, I'm working at 3 different hospitals. And I'm trying to work in each of those 3 different hospitals to try to get patients outside. The biggest barrier that we have is staff taking those patients outside. That's the thing that's the hardest. But this is what we used to do, Stephen. This is what we used to... When we built hospitals at the turn of the century, we had hospital rooms where beds could be taken out onto the veranda and people could get sunlight. I would love to see a time where we could go back to that type of effect. There's studies that have been done. People in a 2-bed room, if you're the bed closer to the window, you get discharged from the hospital faster, on average.
Really?
Yes.
I need to swap sides of the bed with my girlfriend. She's on the sunny side.
There's so much evidence for this. People who are in hospitals that have bigger windows, they give better surveys. And hospitals' reimbursement is tied to the surveys that they get from patients. So it's literally a win-win-win. If hospitals started to, I believe, get patients outside, and they're already doing this. I don't want to say that this isn't happening. There are hospitals that have programs to get patients outside. I think we just ought to be doing it a lot more. Temperance.
Temperance? What does that mean?
It's an old term, isn't it? It really means moderation, and I would say in this sense, temperance really means to avoid toxins in the body. As somebody who is a pulmonologist,
What's a pulmonologist?
A pulmonologist is someone who takes care of the lungs. And so as a result of that, I see a lot of issues with lung cancer related to smoking. I see in the intensive care unit people with liver failure as a result of alcohol abuse. I also see people on amphetamines here in Southern California where I reside and where I work. We have quite a bit of that. And temperance. If you want to live a long and wholesome life, there are some toxins that you want to avoid. And understanding that is really important. So this is something that if you stop some of those things that we're talking about, all of those links are going to be improved. Air. Seems kind of obvious. Early on, I used to think that what this meant was getting pure air with absolutely nothing in it except for just nitrogen and oxygen. That's not true anymore. We now understand that for you to have the best type of air, it actually has to come with some things in it. Just like our gut has a microflora that you may have heard about, so too does the air that we breathe also must have that. And the best type of air that you can have is actually outside. Rest. This is really interesting because we just mentioned that exercise was a pillar, but rest also is. How can rest and exercise at the same time be pillars of health? And it really comes down to knowing when to do what. Sleep, which is also part of rest. So we're not just talking about a daily rest when you go to sleep. And as a sleep physician, I can tell you quite a bit. We have lots of information about how long we should sleep, the quality of sleep, some of the diseases that prevent us from sleeping. Sleep is so important. I couldn't overexpress it enough. Not just a daily rest, but I would also say, and venture out, we can talk more about this, a weekly rest.
A weekly rest?
A weekly rest.
What do you mean, a weekend? Like
Yeah, absolutely. How many times do we, even on the weekend, do we put down our phone?
Never.
Or we stop reading emails, and we take the time out to do things that we would never be able to do. Finally, trust. So this is something that really just can't be ignored, and I'll say this up front, that in the world of research and science, there is a silo of science, and there is a silo of faith. But what we can't ignore is the growing body of evidence from the scientific world that's peeking over and looking at faith, that people who have faith and people who have faith in God, whether that is their God in that particular denomination, are better apt and able to deal with stress and depression and anxiety. So this is something scientifically that has been shown. Now, if you may have noticed that I did these in a particular order. And if you go through them,
I think
you've
this
got
Death Knight's
nutrition,
just gonna
you've got
fucking solo
exercise,
this
you've got
boss.
water, you've got sunlight, you've got temperance, you have air, you have rest, and finally you have trust. You put that together and it spells out new start.
The only
So
alive guy on your
interestingly,
team?
these
he's
particular topics are not copyrighted, but
doing
there
it
is
though.
a university in Northern California called Weimar University that has actually put these together in that very pattern, and it's called it New Start. They actually have a New Start program, and so this is something that that is actually being used internationally.
So of these subjects that
he,
you
like,
just went through there for this
out?
New Start framework, where do you want to start?
I think actually sunlight is one of those things where I'm excited about all of those, but I think sunlight is really where we have let's put it this way, it's the lowest hanging fruit.
Okay. Explain to me why sunlight is the place where your focus is at the moment.
It's just taking forever.
It's a long trip that has gotten me to that. And I think part of it goes right through COVID. So as a critical care intensivist, when I heard that there was this virus that was coming, they all told us that it was going to be people with respiratory illnesses, which I was certainly comfortable with. But that's not what it turned out to be. We certainly saw people with respiratory illnesses, but what we saw in the intensive care unit, the people that were dying around me, were people with obesity, people with heart disease, people with kidney disease, people with dementia, people with chronic diseases. And it made me think, why was that the case? All of those things have one thing in common, and many other things too, but specifically, they are rooted in something called mitochondrial dysfunction. So let me unpack that for you. And this has to do with longevity, this has to do with aging. This is a huge topic that is now just emerging, and we're now finding more about this. So when I was in high school biology, when I was in college, we all learned about this little organelle in all of our cells, except for red blood cells, called the mitochondria. And I have to say it, what is the mitochondria? It's the powerhouse of the cell, right? So it's the thing that makes energy. What we didn't know at the time is that as we get older, the output from these batteries in our cells drops by about 70%. Can you imagine running your house on 70% less energy? Well, how fundamentally that would change what happens in your house. Like, you could not run the laundry the same way. You could not run the microwave and the laundry at the same time.
And what does that look like in terms of symptoms?
Excellent question, because what it looks like is, depending on the cell type that we're talking about, that's going to have the issue. So if we're talking about the liver's going to get more fatty. If we're talking about the heart's going to become more congested. If we're talking about the brain, it's going to have more dementia. And so what's happening here is that as we get older, the batteries in our cells are not working the same way as they used to. Metabolism is slowing down. And so these are huge issues. And all of these diseases that I just talked about, all the ones that we saw in COVID, if you look in a lot of these diseases, they are rooted in mitochondrial dysfunction. So the question
Alright,
is
this is
why
interesting,
is that the case, and what can we do
but
about it?
I'm gonna pause this one here. Wanna say goodbye to my 2 viewers with me?
Sure.
Alright. Thanks for watching, guys. Till next time, peace.
See ya.